Blynd Submyshynz, where DIY bands submit songs for us to listen and react to blind. Every week, we'll bring a guest from the underground music, arts, or entertainment scene to help you sort through mountains of new music. We go in blind, so you don't have to. Blynd Submyshynz.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Blynd Submyshynz.
Oh man, you really hit the peak there on that one.
We redlined it. All right.
You redlined the shit out of that.
Okay, Mellow Steve. Hey, long time no see. How's it going?
That's good. It's going really well. It's been a week.
It's been at least one night's sleep.
But it's been a week between episodes.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, no, not really. We're recording back to back this weekend.
Yeah, in the time dilated universe that is banking podcast episodes, back to back recordings, essentially, minus some beer, some pizza, some fights, and a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
How'd you sleep?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Bad.
What time did you wake up this morning?
8:30.
Oh,
yeah. Slept in.
We were not that far off.
Slept in today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'll tell you what.
If you haven't picked it up yet, my natural schedule would be waking up at noon every day, and JD's is more like 6 a.m.
In bed by 11. Up by 7.
But still, we make it work.
We do. We make it work.
We do.
Barely.
We do. We missed. We had a fun ASMR parade before we started recording here during sound check.
Ooh, it sounded so good.
Pouring water into our glasses. Wait, can you hear?
So juicy. Oh yeah. Listen to that ASMR.
Sounds like a delicious cocktail. It's not. It's water. It's water and that good ice that you get at Sonic. If you're watching on YouTube.
If you're watching on YouTube, check out our ice.
It's the ice pellets.
It's amazing. It's so good.
It's amazing. It's not great when you have a drink that's not already cold because it's not actually ice. I mean, it's ice technically.
Slush.
But it's more like slush, and it melts so fast, which is good. If you're a habitual ice chewer, which I have been my entire life, it's a little break on the old chompers.
Yeah, you know what they say about people that chew ice?
Oh God, I don't actually, and I'm nervous.
I don't either.
Okay,
actually. I have no idea, but I'm sure they say something about it.
They probably do. All right. Well, hey,
who are we talking to today?
So we would play music for our guest today, but we weren't smart enough to find the recorded output from his time as a singer. But our guest today is more prominent as, one of the early figures in the late 90s pushing stoner rock and stoner metal from a label perspective. So today's guest is Jadd Shickler, who, if you were like me in the early days of the internet thirsting for stoner rock records, you probably bought stuff on All That's Heavy. And you probably bought records from MetorCity because they were all on All That's Heavy. And the man we're interviewing today was the man behind both of those things, and his name is Jadd Shickler. Jadd is now director of label operations for MagneticEye Records.
Which means he runs the label.
Essentially. And MagneticEye is, which he prepped for sale and then sold to Prophecy Productions with the caveat that he stay on as director of label ops. And he has a similar title at Ripple Music. In both cases, his role is kind of artist relations and media and PR and promotion and marketing. Yeah, and distribution too.
And then he's the founder of Blues Funeral.
And then the founder of Blues Funeral, who's doing a really interesting subscription-based premium vinyl service that we talked last week to Domcraft about because they participated in the first year of Post Wax. But it's like a 1-year subscription, and you get these heavily curated vinyl records from bands hand-selected by the Blues Funeral team, and there are 3 people involved. And then you get, detailed liner notes. They do kind of an artistic arc across so they choose 1 or 2 artists to do all of the artwork for the records. They use JJ, who we had from the Obelisk, who we had as a guest, to write all the detailed background and liner notes. And then they do really interesting, the vinyl itself is, pretty interesting options. And I'm pretty sure we just had promoted by Revolver the first annual Doomies.
Oh yeah.
which was an online award show promoting stoner and doom rock and metal that was hosted by Rob Blasco, Ozzy's touring bass player, and Zach Sabbath's bass player, and secretly manager for a few high-profile heavy metal bands. And I'm pretty sure Lowrider won Album of the Year.
I think they did.
And I think that was the post-wax release that...
Oh, wow.
I think... I mean, I know one of the members of Lowrider is one of the 3 people involved with post-wax.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, he's the artistic director.
Nice.
So, all right. So, without any further ado...
Bring him in here and let him tell us about all of this business.
We will bring you Jadd Shickler. Dun, the awkward Zoom wait time where we would have music playing, totally, but we don't. And there he is.
Woohoo!
Hey, guys.
Welcome. Hey, how's it going, Jadd?
Great. How about yourselves?
Good. So I just read out loud the text of your questionnaire that you filled in for the obelisk. So I think the audience is pretty well oriented around.
Wow. Well, this has been great. I'll see ya.
Yeah. Take it easy.
That's my story in a nutshell. Oh God, the urge to not do the Austin Powers. That's me in a nutshell. Why did I laugh so hard at that the first time that movie came out? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh shit, he does this act out. That's me in a nutshell, and then he pretends like he's a man inside of a nutshell.
It was the mid-'90s, man.
Yeah, I guess
comedic sensibilities were not yet what they've become.
Yeah,
for sure. Oh, that reminds me of a dad joke that JD stumbled over last night that broke our 13-year-olds. Like,
oh, it did.
They were. Eva was still laughing when we.
Was
got
she
home.
really?
Yeah. She was like telling legendary stories. What you want to tell us what it was?
It was so bad. It was the ultimate
with all this
dad
build
joke.
up now we got to hear it.
So our 2 daughters were laying together, just chilling, watching a show. They both stood up. My daughter had a wrapper on her leg, and so his daughter was
like a candy wrapper.
Olive, you have a wrapper on your leg. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. I think it's Lil Nas X. Get it off.
That was it.
That's it. That's the joke.
And like nearly killed a 13-year-old.
The 13-year-old thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I was like, that was even bad for me.
Oh, it was trash. It was hot garbage.
Yeah, I've heard worse. I've made worse.
Yeah. You got any good dad jokes?
Yeah.
I don't file them to everyone's benefit, but yeah, they've come and gone.
Yeah, we spend too much time together, so at this point, like all our stories are merged, and I just have to mine whatever interesting thing. I mean, in the world that we're living in now, like what's interesting in a day might have been the biggest moment.
Yeah, seriously.
That cracks the top 5 easily.
Of yesterday.
Exactly.
Sure. How you been doing? You've been a busy man during the last year for sure.
Yeah.
How's it been? Kind of running label shit during the pandemic year.
It has not. It's only sped up. It didn't slow down for me at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, my life in terms of my work life didn't change really at all.
Yeah.
Because I've been working at home for most of the last 8 years at different jobs, whether it was music stuff or other stuff. And so that's what I was already doing. And so like leading into that, all bands got grounded and tours got canceled, and my stream of stuff I had to stay on top of and keep at stayed exactly where it was, and even increased when when bands kind of started figuring out, oh, well, if we're stuck at home anyway, let's, some those who were able kind of started working on stuff, and then it was like, oh, we have to start putting plans in place for all the things we're going to have coming down the road. So yeah, it was it's been a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we just interviewed Domcraft yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, oh yeah, we're talking about this new album that comes out, and then at some point they're like, oh yeah, and we just finished recording another album 3 weeks ago. Have you had any other like super? I mean, like a King Buffalo or King Gizzard level super producers are rare, but have you had anyone who's been super busy during the last year?
Well, you probably already know one of the answers to that is Howling Giant. I mean,
yeah,
because they practice at Inzak's like basically studio bunker which is also where they do a lot of their recording. So they're writing there, they're live streaming there, they're practicing there, they're recording there.
Well, we learned that Seabass is not allowed in that room, though. They have him locked in a room
well,
upstairs.
You gotta set limits.
Yeah.
You have to earn your way up the chain. Although I'm surprised, I would think Marshall would be like, if Seabass is still there, Marshall must just be outside because he's not. He's only been in the band a year.
Yeah, correct. He wasn't even there. Yeah,
right.
he wasn't allowed in.
We'll let you know when you can podcast. All right, we just don't get greedy. They're super prolific. They knocked out last year. We ended up with a last second hole in one of the Black Sabbath Redux records from MagneticEye.
I know how that is.
And I kind of asked them at the last second, hey, you want to do a track? And they got something. They got one of the standout songs on the record together in like a month. Where other bands were unable to pull together songs in a year and a half.
Yeah.
So they did that. They've got this EP. They basically ran the Ripple live stream. They're about to run a MagneticEye live stream for a handful of bands. They're doing a song for the Back in Black Redux that we're doing, and they're already well along the way writing their new record. So, yeah, they set the bar high.
Yeah, that's cool. So they're running those streams. I mean, clearly those guys are keyed into, particularly Twitch, and when the camera pans around, I can see what their setup looks like for streaming, and they've definitely got it dialed in there. So somebody there knows what they're doing.
It's all of them. I mean, I guess I don't want to speak for what Tom and
my guess
Sebastian
was Zach
do, but I think it's Zach at least leading some of it to a degree. But I mean, he either knows how to do a lot of stuff or he has no hesitation figuring out stuff. Like, that psychological barrier when it's like you think you could probably do this thing if you just were willing to take anywhere between 8 and 35 minutes to watch the YouTube tutorials or read the instructions. And sometimes you're like, all right, I need to learn how to do this and I'll do it. And other times it's like, fuck it, I'm just not going to figure out how to do that. And I'll live with not knowing how, and I'll ask somebody else. He's the guy who just always will go figure it out. He'll go figure it out every time.
Welcome to the story of this podcast.
Let's figure it out.
It's like, how many years I didn't dive into and figure out how to run a DAW and just deal with recording and audio production, and finally it was just like, fuck it, I need to talk to people, JD needs to talk to people, let's figure it out. And so I have a bit of that in me too, maybe not as aggressive as Zach, but we'll get there.
It's good quality.
And they got us to join. I mean, frankly, I joined Twitch that day. My kids are on Twitch nonstop, all day, every day. But finally, after talking to them, literally, I went home and made a Twitch account because they were streaming right after we finished. They were starting a stream. I was like, all right, I'm going to check this out. So I joined, and I suspected something that we might use too. I mean, it's a really interesting platform. It was like someone went, OnlyFans. Well, it was before OnlyFans. It was like the cam sites are cool, but what if I don't want to take my clothes off? Would anyone watch me do anything else? and then give me money as I did it? All right, then let's give it a shot.
It's almost inconceivable what people will watch other people do on their computers, but it makes more sense that musicians would be doing it. It's almost strange that musicians had to discover that platform when it was already being used by gamers, right? We were sitting on the couch last night watching fights, which was a whole weird experience that I could spend 2 years talking about what it was like to see a live event with 20,000 maskless Floridians in physically in the building watching live sports. Whatever, Florida's a long ways away from here, but wow. My 18-year-old daughter was sitting on the couch and Jay goes, what are you doing? And she was watching someone play a game called Cuphead, which is a game that I have and play. And it's really fun to play. And I was like, God, I can't imagine, are they funny? And she's like, oh, yeah, the commentary is good. But I'd watch it even if they weren't saying anything. It's like, no kidding.
All right, man.
I don't get it.
And she's college bound. We're not talking about, this is super. The point is, it's super mainstream, and so it's time to get on board. And it's funny to see how successful people have been taking advantage of different platforms, and
Yeah.
it seems to vary a bit what works. Like, I feel like Instagram's probably the one, because most of the bands in the stoner and doom scene are old. Facebook is pretty popular too, but it seems like our genre hasn't busted through in TikTok yet. As
Right.
hard as Matt Bacon tries, we're not all on TikTok yet, and I wonder what the story is there.
Yeah, we have a guy from MagneticEye is now owned by a German label, and so a lot of that team is in Germany. And so one of the guys on that team was tasked, I don't know, a month or two ago, with basically go start a TikTok for the company, and he did. I have so much to do that I don't have time to go find out like what impact it's having or what he's throwing on there and stuff. He's just like, anytime we have videos, just send them to me. I'm like, all right, they'll be in this folder. I'll just great.
So the underground weird metal label in Germany didn't immediately set up KPIs for the guy who was developing the TikTok account. This is I laugh, but this was the first time I looked at someone's LinkedIn profile before we did an episode of the podcast. The first time it was probably relevant, although I know some of the people that we've talked to do also have LinkedIn profiles, like Chris Johnson does, I'm pretty sure. But it was a weird experience. Like, I don't even like LinkedIn for my day job, but it's,
I don't even know the last time I logged into my LinkedIn. It's probably been a couple of years since it was updated. Man,
Get with it. How are recruiters going to find you?
You know, it's funny. I can tell that because the part about Blues Funeral is like very short and to the point, and not really full of the details of someone who's now been through a full year of delivering post wax and is on the second set of deliverables for it. Sort of like, here's the idea for what we're doing. So
I think that
makes
also
sense.
At that time I was trying to figure. I think at that time I was getting that updated. I was between like having quit my last like real day job, and was kind of patching through with doing some stuff for MagneticEye, and I was about to do some stuff for Ripple, and I was just starting Blues Funeral. But I was thinking maybe I can leverage all my experience and all the things I've done, and actually get a real music industry job. And I didn't want to shoot myself in the foot by putting too much emphasis on like the entrepreneurial thing that I was doing, to like raise a red flag, like, hey, we should hire this guy. But wait a minute, it looks like he's in the middle of starting his own business. Why, maybe.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, which ultimately ended up not being an issue anyway, because things worked out better. So, but I should probably get that page up to date.
Yeah, my LinkedIn profile, now that I have one, doesn't say anything about music, because I like build a wall in between my day job and what I do outside of it. Maybe that'll change someday. But what I did think what really was interesting.
We might need some internet security analytics for the show. I'm sure every label could use some internet security analytics.
Yeah. You need help in cybersecurity at Prophecy. I can cut you a deal.
I don't want to interrupt your last train of thought, but yeah, I can tell you something really relevant right now that just happened to the MagneticEye Instagram.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh no.
It got hacked. It got hacked and got held ransom a week ago.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. So I mean, depending on when this is airing, I guess that would have been the I don't know,
2 weeks
like the 17th or so of April. Yeah, like in the middle of the night, like 12 a.m. or something. We have 3 people that log into the MagneticEye Instagram to actually post. Myself, the founder, Mike Vitale in New York. We log in on our phones, and then we have this guy in Germany who occasionally posts some content, and he logs in on a laptop. And so he logged in, and then I guess 10 minutes later, there was another login from somebody who came in, changed the password, then logged in again, changed the email, logged in again, changed the recovery phone number. How he got in, we don't know. And all of these generated those security notifications to our owner, which in the morning, and each of the emails says, if this wasn't you, click this link and you can resecure the account. He clicked the links did nothing. So he was unable to secure the account. And then he got a text that morning from this guy basically saying, pay me this and you can have your account back. And we just spent like a week and a half we still don't really have it back completely yet. Like our boss went through the normal channels for support and got no response. And then I sort of randomly remembered in like the hazy reaches of, I have a kind of a good memory for random stuff like important people. And I remembered we had a customer who had reached out about a record that didn't arrive to him like 2 years ago. And the post office had said it was delivered. And he was like, well, I mean, it didn't get here. So what are we going to do about this? And I'm like, all right, we don't always just automatically replace something if it's not our fault. But this time I was like, you know what, we'll send you another one. He was like, great, just send it to my work. And it was Facebook. I'm like, ooh, this will be useful sometime.
Someday.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Somewhere down the road. And so sure enough, this past week, I reached out to them like, hey, I have no idea if you can help with this or not, but here's our situation. We lost our account. This is like one of our main marketing promotion channels. And he was like, yeah, we have an internal escalation I can file and see if that helps. And it got us the account back by the end of the week, which we have not yet started to use again yet, because our owner and I are trying to figure out how we can better secure it than we thought we already had it secured. We had the 2-factor authentication and stuff, but somehow this hacker got around it. So
yeah, there's always a way. So a few things. It was shocking to me. I've never had an Instagram account hijacked, but it's shocking to me that they can in series hack all the account check verifications without any kind of time limit or wait. That's something that Instagram needs to fix.
Oh, it happened to Bongzilla the same week. I should mention that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah, like the week before their record dropped, and they just walked away. They were like, all right, screw it. We'll just start a new account.
Yeah, and the real problem with companies like Facebook and Instagram is there is no customer service. You're not a customer, right? They care about two things. Do you spend money on advertising, which I'm guessing you do, but probably not at a level that actually that they actually care about.
I guess
unfortunately.
not.
And then, how big is what's your footprint? How many followers do you have? And those are the things that motivate them to move, because there are probably, 1,000 or 10,000 MagneticEye accounts a day held for ransom. And it's just, it's the shrapnel of doing the business that they do. But there are definitely controls that they could put in place. And you guys are using 2-factor?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And how hard would it be for them to have just it's a multi-billion-dollar company, to have a little security team, just with like a couple of people whose job it is to answer or just like look at stuff like, yeah, it looks like you are in fact the owner, and this was in fact done, and here you go, here's your account back. Yeah,
if you're Kim Kardashian, there's a security team for sure, and probably a named person. I mean, I'll tell you. The answer to how hard, and this is hopefully the first and last and only time I talk about this shit on the podcast, is
something new.
So the real problem in security is what in the industry we call the skills gap, which is at any given time there are something like 5 million open positions worldwide in cybersecurity.
Okay.
Can you think of another industry where there are that many unfilled jobs? It's not even if you worked in business, you can't even wrap your head around the concept of a global knowledge shortage of 5 million people.
Right.
They want as many people as they can get. They just can't find them. So musicians, if you are technically minded, interested in building a career that's intense and can make enough money to help support your love of music and is very flexible, Trader Joe's is great. Substitute teaching substitute teaching came up. That's great, but working in cybersecurity, and it can be done in a trade school way. So you don't even have to go to a 4-year university. You can get specialized training and just start working in cybersec operations, and you can make a really good living and also continue to do what it is that you do. And I mean, one of the biggest, it used to be a hacker show. It's not really a hacker show anymore, but it sort of is. DEF CON, which is like a trade show for the hacker community in Las Vegas every year. Okay. If you went to DEF CON, you would probably think you were either at a metal show or a rave, and not at a technical / business conference. So it's
because of the types of folks that are doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And because of everything that happens after all the sessions are done in the day, it's a very counterculture. I mean, the movies portray it wrong. No one has really ever gotten it right on film. Every movie you've ever seen where someone is hacking is trash. Mr. Robot is maybe the closest. I've ever seen on TV. And even that, they take shortcuts because the truth is it's boring. It doesn't look cool, when someo's actually hacking on a computer. It doesn't look cool
looks
at
like
all.
typing.
Yeah, it just looks like typing, and it's just text. But it is an interesting community, and it's a really diverse community that is, in cybersecurity, there's this concept taken from all you need to know is one of the primary concepts was taken from Mad Magazine. So spy versus spy. So in cyber, there are white hats and black hats. And they both do the same thing. The white hats theoretically do it for good purposes, and the black hats do it for bad purposes. But they switch back and forth all the time. So you've probably seen Kevin Mitnick talking anytime there's a big attack of any sort about how to protect yourself and whatever. Kevin Mitnick was a FBI jailed notorious hacker who has a very profitable speaking career now as a guy who goes and tells people about hacking, and that's common. So it just means that you're going to meet some wild people in the community, and people that would be very comfortable in a metal setting too. There's probably tons of metal shows around DEF CON. I haven't been in a long time. But
it's like you're pretty versed in this, though. You might be one of my next calls next time we have something go south.
Yeah. 25 years working in the industry. So
this PSA brought to you by the Cybersecurity Institute of San Jose.
Yeah, something like that. Ooh, that was a fucking serious.
Should we talk about music again? Should we do that?
Welcome back.
Well, no, like to me, Vegas is two things. It's Psycho, and then it's going to conferences. It's going to conferences for work, man, it's been interesting not doing the conferences for work for a while, but I'm ready to get back to going to shows. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What's your take on Psycho this year? When we had when Santos from Old Man Gloom was on, he said they had just gotten an email that said, it's on, we're going forward. Yeah. But then shortly after that, they sort of said, but also the lineup's probably going to change, and maybe it'll look a little different. What does it look like from your end? You have bands on the roster?
Lord Buffalo is playing it because they were booked on it for last year, and so they were carried over. And as far as I talk to Evan fairly regularly, and as far as everything that he's indicated is, it's still going forward. He's also kind of laying the groundwork for some other fests, like after that one, other than just the normal Psycho. So I don't know. I don't know if it's intended to be kind of like a fail-safe. If for some reason Psycho isn't able to happen, then there's something else where it's not another year. But he seems pretty committed. They, the whole team, him and Ronnie, from what I understand, it's all going forward.
It's time for Psycho to build a brand in. So obviously California has been kind of the home, but maybe in the current environment, it's time for Psycho to expand into Texas and Florida. and all
Where
the
could we realistically be assured that 10,000 people will show up?
Nobody gives a shit.
Here's a short list of states. Yeah, I know. We were having drinks with a buddy last night, and he mentioned that they're reopening churches for 100% capacity here in New Mexico shortly, and I believe no masks, but movie theaters are still not reopening. So explain that.
I'm going to leave my comments about natural selection to myself.
Right.
But at this point, if that's what you want to do, then obviously the problem is the blast radius of the virus. It doesn't just affect the people that go to church without a mask on.
Right. Because those people might go out to the breweries and stuff that the rest of us are carefully, going to and trying to choose wisely when we, where we risk, what we risk, and so forth. And
then they end up at the doctor where no one has a choice about what they're doing. So I saw like one of those painfully obvious but definitely true memes that was like, all everyone's talking about right now is, thank the first responders and our medical community. And, they've been incredible over this last year. 6 months after everyone's vaccinated, or everyone that's going to get vaccinated is, and it's less of an issue when they try to organize a union or some sort of strike in order to get like some kind of compensation for what they did, the story will switch completely to how greedy, how selfish and greedy they are.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the steamroller scene. Two Austin Powers references in one episode. It's like the fucking steamroller scene where the steamroller's coming at him and he's like, ah, and then it cuts back to the steamroller and it's like
super slow,
and then it cuts back and he's like, ah, like we all know it's coming. You know it's
are these age-based references? Just you 100%. Sense that I was there with you at the same time. I'm in the right generation. Oh, he knows.
I think you're actually.
He would have used it no matter what.
I would have used it. No, these are my references.
These are his references.
Unfortunately, no. That's one of the real dangers, though. Of this actually comes up a lot on the show. People who continue to consume new media in all forms, new music, new TV, new movies, new art, and people who kind of stick in their glory years, the best movies. By some random chance, the best movies happen to have come out when I was between 16 and 24. Like how is that even possible?
Right.
So I still consume lots of new stuff, but I mean that's just a fucking funny scene. That's a great scene, and it was used again. When that big ship was stuck in the Suez Canal, someone did an animation because then he tries to or there's a scene where he's in a narrow hallway with on a golf cart and he tries to make a U-turn and he gets the cart wedged in.
Oh yeah.
And then he reverses back and forth 100 times to try and turn it around.
We should just stop talking and watch the movie. What do you say?
I know, right?
Well, I have a deep connection to the Austin Powers franchise because my wife was a super competitive synchronized swimmer. And her duet partner was Becky Dyron Lancer, who was the captain of the gold medal winning U.S. team in the mid to late 80s and was the choreographer for the opening synchronized swimming scene in the second Austin Powers movie.
Holy shit.
So let's just bring it all back around.
You were one step from stardom.
I know. Well, I'm pretty much best friend. I'm pretty much best friends with Mike Myers.
Yep.
Is how that works out.
They almost named another one of the movies after you.
That's almost. Austin Powers. Yeah. It's actually completely random. I'm not sure I've thought much about other than the memes that came up. That picture of the boat in the Suez Canal photoshopped over the cart trying to make the U-turn was pretty fucking funny.
So what's your favorite movie from the 90s?
And why is it Singles?
I do love Singles. How'd you know? I do love Rounders. It's Pump Up the Volume is 80s. I don't know. This has the opportunity to become a really wide tangent.
No, there's one answer, and that answer is Wild at Heart.
Was that Nick Cage?
Yeah, it's David Lynch.
Was it? Wild at Heart was Nick Cage?
Right? Yeah, Nicolas Cage is Sailor Ripley and fucking, was it Napalm? There's a concert scene, and I think Napalm Death is the band that plays. No, Wild at Heart's a fucking great movie.
What about Raising Arizona?
Yeah,
another good one.
Coen Brothers are overrated. There, I said it. Send me hate mail.
You said something interesting a minute ago, though, about continue to consume new media as you get older, whatever. I think about that a lot because of my age and sort of looking at people I know who kind of stopped, I would say, not too long after college. Mm-hmm. Where it was whatever we dug in college or maybe through the rest of our 20s, that's enough. And it's weird because I think a lot about it because I kind of get it from the perspective of as the amount of stuff you have to kind of juggle and think about and organize in your brain just in life in general continues to compound as you get older. Things start getting eliminated.
Yep.
Right. And one of those things for, I think, a lot of people is I want to go find new bands. I want to find new music. And it just becomes, you know what? I love the music in my collection. I'm just perfectly happy listening to Journey for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Journey's great, but okay. That to me, that was always weird. It has to be a commitment to time and the energy of going, and I'm going to go listen to a bunch of stuff. I'm going to actually consciously go do searches and go read reviews and charts and stuff. And okay, these people say that this stuff, here's the top 10 here. I'm going to go listen to everything on the top 10 and see what catches me so that I can find another new band, because it's not enough to just go, I'm done ever finding new bands again. But for a lot of people, I think that's pretty typical.
Yeah.
What's the best way that you find new music? I mean, I know people are sending it to you daily, but
well, I don't have a way that I'm happy with, to be honest. There's sort of, I don't have as much time as I would like to go read, like look up, I don't know, articles and reviews and so forth. I read the Obelisk when I can. I scroll through the Doom charts every month and try to play a little bit of everything that's on the list, but I usually don't make it through the entire list, and then other things come up. I used to subscribe to Magnet Magazine, which is a great magazine for totally not heavy music related at all, but I have tastes that are not heavy music. So, and when you're in the heavy music scene, it's really hard to discover anything outside your scene when you're so rooted in it. When you're like, I'm managing projects coming out, I'm listening to submissions, I'm talking to bands who want input or advice or whatever. It's hard to go like, oh, I want to go discover a new singer songwriter. Like when, how? Just being inundated with
this podcast is the answer.
Yeah, this is how we do it. That's how we do it.
Yeah. I haven't come up with a way that I'm really pleased with, to be honest with you. Like I always feel like I'm behind. I guarantee that there's something out there. There's 5-10 new bands or records out there that are awesome that I haven't heard. I hope somehow I stumble across them or somebody mentions something, because
you will. You'll discover them like 2 to 3 years from now, and then go, "How the fuck did I miss these guys?"
Like Moontooth.
That was one for us.
I mean, that moment in time is interesting because it sort of coincides with when people typically get married and then have kids. And kids will ruin your free time situation, and then I think having kids causes most people to have a sort of reckoning that is, evident in everything that happens in this country, at least. And I assume it's a universal human thing. And that is like, what is my core value? Is my core value sort of like guarding and protecting what I know and what I'm comfortable with, because that's what I have the energy to do? Or is my core value being open and wanting to learn and seek and understand new? Am I conservative or am I progressive? And I don't mean that in a political sense, but I get it. But I do think that's a choice that people make at some point. It's an active choice, and progression in all forms is a daily struggle. It's an active choice. It's much easier to just stop and say, I get everything. I understand. I know what I know. You're not going to change me. Whatever the subject is. It's much harder to say, like, maybe I don't know everything, and maybe what I need to keep doing throughout my life is searching for new things. And some of us focus on music, and some people focus on there's a lot of different directions you can aim that energy. But I do feel like I'm starting to like meet people and go get a basic idea, like, this is a person who conserves, this is a person who progresses. And not surprisingly, mostly the people that I get along with are the ones who want to progress and change and grow. So And I'm finding it harder and harder to understand the other impulse, but
Speaking of finding new music,
what, you want to play some music?
I was just gonna say, this is a perfect segue. Let's discover some new music.
All right, sounds good to me.
We'll dig in.
So hey, we explain this every time, dear listeners. Sorry that you have to hear this over and over again. We're getting blind submissions. We don't listen to this music. We only pick bands that we've never heard of before. When they send in, hopefully they send in as little information as possible. We get a lot of PR submissions now too, and PR people do a wonderful job of describing the music. So I look at a lot of emails kind of with my hand over the screen as we as we copy the links and move them into something that's less descriptive. And the idea here is to just sort of explore what it is like. When you click on something and start listening to it, what is it that keeps you listening? What keeps you from not pressing the, like, all right, next, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And then you're listening over Zoom. When we produce the podcast, the music quality will be better than what you hear now. I don't know how much you're more on the business side. I don't know much of a head you have for sort of production and arrangement and all of the details. We tend to not talk too much about production just because it's hard to say. It doesn't actually, in this environment, it doesn't sound exactly the way it's supposed to sound. It's more about...
Don't focus on audio quality because it's maybe not representative of what the thing actually is that you got. Good. All right.
Exactly.
If something
don't hold it against them.
Well, yeah, and if something sounds interesting, and for the listeners too, go to their Bandcamp page, and actually listen to it the way they want you to hear it, and not just through the podcast, because we're squeezing a 3-hour conversation into a mono wave file that doesn't make the music sound the way it's supposed to sound exactly, but you get the idea.
Yeah,
right.
That said, do you have like a make or break? Is there something when you hear new music that will either make you turn it off or something that keeps you listening?
I will say that there's not a single thing I can identify that keeps me listening, other than I try to make myself go past the initial impetus. Like if something's not grabbing me, or even if something is a little off-putting, I actually try to make myself stick with it long enough to make sure that I'm not being hasty.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because I know myself well enough to know I'm too hasty in like deciding what I think of something. I mean, a great example of that is, I think I bought in the mid 90s or the early 90s, I think I bought Alice in Chains Dirt 3 times. And the 3 times because the local store here, the local chain called Hastings, would accept returns of open CDs. And I bought it, listened to it, was like, I don't get it. Took it back. I don't know, a month or 2 later, went, oh, well, maybe I should give it. I bought it, listened to it. What's the big deal? I don't understand this band. Took it back. And then for whatever reason on the 3rd time was like, oh, actually, this is one of my all-time favorite bands making one of my all-time favorite records. And I just didn't give myself enough of a chance. And so I now try to make myself give things a chance, more than even past that, like initial, like, oh, I don't really know. I will say, if a band has witch in their name, I'm sorry to sound like an asshole. If a band has witch in any form, 2 V's, a Y, some sort of rune, I'm
you're
probably
immediately
out.
back on your
I'm
heels.
probably you got to try harder.
Is there a grandfather clause in there? So if they were a witch band that was formed before a certain year,
Witchfinder General is acceptable. I'll take them.
Oh, sorry, witch bands. I assume the same is true for Wizard.
I mean, there's a handful. I don't have like a list that I refer to, but it's just sometimes you know what I'm saying. Like you see certain band names, and it's almost like you're doing yourself a disservice. You might have the most forward-thinking, amazing musical instincts, and you serve them up to me under this banner of such an uncreative name. Come on.
I mean, as I'm good friends with the guys in Red Wizard, and they regret their name every day of their lives. Maybe they'll change it at some point, but what I love also though is the kind of the intentional flipping that on its ear of a band like Mammoth Weed Wizard Bastard, where it's just like, you don't like these conventions? Well, we're just going to use all everyone. We're going to use all. I give them credit for the tongue-in-cheek. Plus, they're great
of that. Yeah. Well, that helps, and it's presumably if a band is good enough, you can override anything. But you're just making it harder on yourselves if you're forcing us to get to the point where we love you so much that we can ignore a name
the terrible
band name. Absolutely no thought whatsoever.
So before we listen, you mentioned other genres. So outside heavy music, what are your go-tos? Because we actually will cover some non-heavy stuff here. I
mean, I mentioned singer-songwriter. Like Gregory Alan Isakov is probably in my, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's probably in my top 5, like just artists in general.
I never listened to him. Mm-mm.
Just haunting, sparse, just gorgeous voice, and stuff that's like a little more kind of folksy, like dark folk. I mean, I took a real stab when I put out the record from Lord Buffalo and essentially decided I think this is great, and I'm just going to market the shit out of this to the heavy community because I know there's people in the heavy community who will dig it. And I was led to that conclusion by the fact that I saw them a monolith on the Mesa. So I kind of knew already that like there was probably something, but like, and it turned out, I mean, I felt validated that I did it, but that genre, I mean, even a less heavy version of what they do than them is stuff that I love. JJ Diabolos turned me on to Cinderwell, who's amazing. She's got, I don't know where she's from. It has almost like a Celtic, Irish kind of lilt to it. Again, very sparse and quiet and delicate, that kind of stuff. Yeah, because you can only listen to super heavy, just pummeling to so much.
Yeah. We have some of the real standouts, even recently, but in general, in this podcast, have been in that kind of vein. Who's the woman from Oakland? Her last name is Esther Ann Gove. Just a acoustic guitar, probably tuned down a little bit, and a singer, and it was really incredible. So good. And then Erebrat, which is this like crazy gothic couple who lives in a church in Sweden. Like they live and make music and art in a church in Sweden. You know, we'd never heard of them, but then you dig in a little bit, and the woman already had like a massive career in pop music in Europe. No, we've come across, and what was it Fault? From Whores, Christians, the band from Atlanta that he talked about, that was very Tom Waitsy, super dark. I can't
remember what they were called.
Folk band that was, you know, junkies in the throes of being junkies, just writing junkie shit, and it is like it's drenched in every ounce of that kind of feeling. Yeah, and it was like immediate, like we pressed play, and I was like, whoa, like this is
heavy.
Well, it's heavy too. I mean, that's funny because that stuff that you're talking about, that's all heavy to me. And,
sure.
Yeah.
It's like soul heavy, right? It's not like heavy. Volume heavy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, soul
exactly.
Heavy. Yeah, no, like I like when I first started playing music, for me it was like heavy metal and funk. I listened to tons of old funk and soul. Because I'm a bass player, and to me it was like the rhythmic tie between the two genres is what really drove my listening. But yeah, we both, JD has a really diverse background. He listens to tons of different stuff too. So
yeah, cool. Well, send me a list of everything you just mentioned. All those artists. I'd love to hear that
completely.
Stuff.
Well, especially I think Leanne. Metal Media, Leanne Ridgway sent us Esther. I think she's representing her.
Oh, okay.
And I think that she's putting a record out that's not spoken for at this point. So, just saying. All right. So, what do we have first?
We have Wormhog.
Oh God.
There's a name. It should be at the top.
I'm looking at one we listened to yesterday. We listened to an artist called Body Meat.
And.
Scroll up.
It was so one of the picks that we'll do later is one of the places that, as a result of this podcast, we've really started to go to for curation is the Bandcamp article section. I think they're doing some of the most interesting work in digging into regional and niche music scenes globally of anybody in music.
I've heard you mention that on another episode.
Yeah, and
I'm almost inclined to think that they may be sponsoring this podcast.
No, we openly pled for that yesterday. This is definitely an attempt to get us on that main page.
No, we're just standing them.
We're just standing.
That is what the kids would say.
And
right?
If you're not familiar with Bandcamp, let me tell you a few things.
There's a cool little platform. Hey, look, you use it, I use it. You've been in the music. I'll tell you, I spent a shit ton of money in that time period on All That's Heavy. You probably go back through if you have all the transaction records. I would imagine you'll find some from me on there. Like,
I'm a digital hoarder, so there's a very good chance I have your name in a customer list somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny, and what's funny about All That's Heavy is that it was like kind of birth of the internet shit. It was like e-commerce 1.0, and it was like, because I'm in San Jose, we're in the practice studio with Sleep, but like the idea that people could buy music like that on the internet from all over the world was like,
Tell me about it.
Yeah, this changes everything because the problem with niche communities pre-internet was you're kind of geographically locked down, and now you can like the proliferation of great fucking like Greek doom bands or Italian doom bands that we wouldn't have the foggiest idea about before the internet. It just wouldn't even be the chances that you'd run across that music anywhere was so small. And then things like all that's heavy popped up, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, now someone's doing this real niche curation for me, and I can actually get the music. It was so cool.
It really was at the birth of the internet, and you can tell that because of the name. We chose that in part because back then the internet was organized alphabetically. And so we wanted an A name because we were like, oh, look at Amazon. Like, Amazon, that was really ingenious. What could come up with its A? And there was a band called Rotors to Rust who had an album. I think they're from like Vermont or something, or New Hampshire, somewhere out east. But they had a record called All That's Heavy, and we liked it, but I didn't think that they were super representative of the scene and style. And I basically just asked them, like, hey, we're launching this store. We'll carry your record. I just want to use that name as the name of the store. Do you care? They're like, no, that's great. Do it. And yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Luckily that changed so that we don't have to now go to a heavy music store.
Yeah. Can you conceive of like being in like, I don't know, in what we're all doing is long enough to remember that? Like, it wasn't really that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
Like Yellow Pages thinking in the internet era is just it's so crazy. And it's interesting to honestly to be part of the generation that knows the before and the after so well, that we're like, we were in our 20s and like professional working human beings. And I remember like, I don't need, what do I need a cell phone for? Even when all my coworkers had them, I don't want to be reachable 24/7. That's stupid to like now having it basically implanted on the side of my head.
Oh yeah. I
get it.
I had multiple internet businesses for close to a decade before I caved and got a cell phone. I used to love leaving my house and not having anyone have the ability to find me. And I would like call people from payphones in restaurants that I like to hang out at or coffee shops, just for like the sort of inward thrill of like, they don't even know where I am. Nobody can, like, when I hang up this phone, I'm a ghost. There's no, like, I'm off this leash. And then before I finally, gave in.
That's funny.
This is how it was in the old days, kids.
In the olden days.
Yeah.
All right.
Wasn't that long ago either.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So who's first?
Wormhog.
Wormhog. Did you heart all of these?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did. Look at you. All right. So I'm going to share my screen so you will be able to see what it is that we see here on the Bandcamp page. And, this is actually a good opportunity to kind of maybe spend a little bit more time than usual kind of looking at the digital footprint of these bands. Because Bandcamp gives you such a great opportunity to present your first look. Like, here we are. This is our description. This is this is our visual aesthetic. To kind of get a sense for.
Speaking of heavy bands from Italy.
Oh, here Wormhog. So, like, what's your take on what to put in this little section here? That's the description of the music. Do you have kind of a unified version, or you leave that up to the bands?
Well, I'm a fan of a bio, but I'm probably not representative in a lot of ways of the audience I would like to be reaching, because most of them don't have time or inclination to read anything. So I'm thinking, give me a cool little catchy description that says something about who you are. But again, I don't know that my leaning in that direction is something I would recommend anybody else, because I can't tell them for sure that I'm right. I just know that's what I like. I'd like to know something about you in that little section, besides what I'm going to hear from the record.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the features of being a good marketer, is understanding the difference between your opinions and the opinions of the market at large. And that's a hard one to get over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like the album art. So if you're not looking, it's kind of like two stone heads is the way I interpret them, kind of attached together, facing out over some clouds and some mountains.
That's an apocalyptic wasteland. That's what that is.
Is it? Or is it
I knew there was a reason I like that. My wife would immediately start talking shit about how everything is so bleak in the music style that I like. If she saw me talking about how I like this, but I do. I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
Should we listen to the song?
Yeah, what do they want us to listen to?
Wormhole.
All right.
Let's do it.
Do you advise the bands on what to have as the default play song on a site like Bandcamp, since the bands have a choice?
Like if it's something that I'm putting out?
Yeah.
I'm usually the one I mean, I'm the one who sets that up typically.
Okay.
And so we'll work together kind of to choose what's the first song, what's the first single, what's the order that we're going to drop these songs in, and so forth. And I usually give input. In some cases, in a lot of cases, we agree. Some cases we don't, and I kind of make my case, and then ultimately let them decide. And you could talk to any of the guys that I work with, like Howling Giant, Domcraft, whatever. I mean, it's pretty collaborative in terms of those discussions. I mean, I don't dictate anything, but I definitely have opinions that are informed by having done this for a while.
Yeah, and I think too, it's that same thinking of like, that might be your favorite song to perform, but what is the song that's going to catch people's ears the most and bring them in?
Yeah.
Right.
Or do you stick, like, if you're an album oriented musician and you're writing, you really think of the record as a composition from start to finish, or are you just going to be a stalwart in the idea that you start at the beginning? Because that's what we want that's what we want the experience to be. For me, it's a real conflict, because I understand wanting to catch people with something that in 30 seconds or less sort of encapsulates the sound of the band, but I also want people to have the full experience of listening to the thing from the start the way it's supposed to be. So
I think you have to be a realist in that regard, right? You have to go, we probably have, like you said, 30 seconds to get somebody's ears to the point where they want to hear the record. Yeah. Like, even if it makes more sense to start the record with this, what's the song? What's the hook that gets them to go, whoa, that is, that's really cool.
Yeah. So here's a case where the landing song is actually the first song on the record.
Cool.
So, all right, let's hear
Check it out.
This is Wormhole, and it is
That wasn't commentary. That was genuinely wanting to know.
Yeah.
These guys all instrumental, or do you know yet?
I don't know.
Might be too early to make any assumptions.
Oh, there we go.
No, there we go. There's some vocal break.
Reminds me of early Danzig.
Yeah, I mean,
I hear that.
Speaking of Greek bands, there's nothing in there for me that's new or exciting or that jumps out. I mean, it's
well executed stoner doom.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
but yeah,
fun.
Yeah, that's the kind of band that if that showed up on the Doom charts, I would probably make myself listen to 3 songs, even if where we are in the first song, I wasn't like floored yet. I wouldn't give up on it yet, because I want to see what else they got coming.
Yeah, I would probably do the same. Kind of listen to the first couple minutes of each song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at like the label and kind of this high and heavy. I know I've seen these high and heavy records before. I don't know. So this is Electric Valley Records. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got a question about that, or I guess this whole process. So do you think, maybe you don't know the answer to this, but you probably have an idea. Are folks sending you stuff to kind of just get attention for the band, even if they have a label? I mean, did it start out as like unreleased bands looking for,
it's
looking
always
for
been
exposure?
a mix.
Yeah, it's always a mix.
always been a mix, and some of the most fun have been just like, hey, check out this MP3 I just made in my basement of a song called "Fucked by Bigfoot," which was a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
When in the Nighthawk episode, speaking of MagneticEye bands, from Heavy Temple. And sometimes it's label submissions, and for us, the gate is, have we heard of them? Do we know them? Do we know what they sound like? And if we haven't, even if it's something from a label, we'll still listen to it, because the idea is, my Facebook feed is full of all kinds of music every day, hundreds and hundreds of links to, hey, check this out. Some of it's label stuff. No Revolver band's ever going to end up on here. They don't need it. No. Even if I haven't heard of them or JD hasn't heard of them, but if we're talking about these kind of, I don't even know if we would listen to a MagneticEye band that we have.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, is pretty much the cutoff. Like, if you guys don't know them, so like the new Monolord would never show up on your show. No,
it would never show up. But maybe bands that are as popular as Monolord in other parts of the world on labels that we're less familiar with, they could possibly end up here. And that has happened, just because we're so much less familiar with the scenes in South America or Asia or parts of Europe.
Sure.
Croatia. We went on a deep dive on this crazy label in Croatia.
Yeah.
one day, and I mean, clearly the guy's busy as hell putting records out, and to some degree of success apparently, based on the number and the quality of the releases. We just didn't know anything about them, so our assumption is we don't. Probably most of the people who listen to us don't either. But I'm sure there have been times where someone's like, how did you not know about that? Like, are you idiots? And we'll cop to that immediately. And that's sort of the point. Like, the vastness of available music is insane. And there's really, I don't think there's anyone who can claim to know any band in any scene in any geography in heavy music. And if they do, name yourself, come on the show, and we'll
name yourself.
We'll test you.
You know everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we get stuff from Leanne and Purple Sage, and
sure.
There's probably 10 or 12 different PR firms that send us stuff regularly, but there are also lots of just individuals.
Yeah, the bands themselves send in.
We listen to a ton of quarantine projects over the last year. Stuff, people who, like you, said like, hey, I have this impulse. I've always wanted to do this. I'm going to do it all by myself, and tracked every instrument and recorded the whole thing themselves and threw it up on Bandcamp. So
right.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of it. All right, what's next?
Liar, Thief, Bandit.
Huh. Liar, Thief, and some scenes have emerged that we didn't know about. And in fact, we're gonna, one of our favorite things is when we listen to something and we find out about an artist or a scene that we didn't know about, and then they eventually become a guest. And we're doing that. There's kind of a really cool noise scene in Australia. There's a lot of bands that are kind of Melvins,
cool.
Big business.
And we've gotten multiple submissions, and we're like, what's going on here? And finally, one of them, we're like, all right, let's just have you on as a guest so that you can explain to us why this is happening. Sweden's insane, because there are little micro scenes all throughout Sweden. So, having the Domcraft guys on gave us a kind of a different view than having Max from Cavern Deep, because they're in different cities and have different influences and backgrounds. So
sure.
All right, so this is Liar Thief Bandit.
Yeah.
.bandcamp.com. What do they want us to hear? Good enough?
Good enough.
All right, so again, the track that we landed on. This is a record that is not released yet, so there are 3 songs on here available now.
Is this one on a label?
Can you guys tell bands when they're going to be featured? Like, hey,
No.
We got your submission. It'll be on, in a month.
We tell them after.
Yeah, we tell them after
okay.
It's been on.
Yeah. We tag them, and then they find out.
Yeah.
You have good news and bad news. You made it.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I mean, I don't know. We've told this story a million times, but when we were kind of piloting this, all we had was Bandcamp selections, and one of them was this pop artist, and it was us and Susie in the first episode, and we were all kind of like, and Susie's like, and then this guy has in the last year become like one of the most famous pop musicians in England.
Really?
Yeah. So and we tagged him, and he listened, and he's like, "That was kind of fucked up."
Yeah. you did not say nice things.
You guys weren't nice, and we were like, mostly what we said is, "This isn't our thing." You know, like I said, this could be the most popular artist in the world, and I wouldn't fucking know. So, and then it turns out that he really was that popular. Oh, he's got a song on Spotify that the last time I checked had 17 million streams. So,
holy hell,
it's doing okay.
Yeah,
shows how much you know.
Yeah, exactly. We know nothing.
Yeah, episode 1, we came out the gates like hanging our bare asses out for everyone to see. So it can't get much worse than that. That's gross. Metallica? Never heard of that.
Yeah. Who's that? Where are they from?
Look, that's a thing that happens in this like YouTube reaction world, is these fake reactions where people pretend like they've never heard something before, and then it's like
possible.
There's a whole YouTube reaction community, and they all call each other out. There's no way you haven't heard that song before. That reaction was ridiculous, because I think the video hits have so much to do with like how ridiculous their reaction is.
Oh, completely.
Right. So I've
never heard a song on here that has had me like, what the fuck? Mind blown. I mean, but that's what those videos are. You're like, God, I'm sorry, nobody reacts that way to any song.
I almost just had a heart attack. What the fuck? All right.
I mean, that song would have to be really good.
All right, Liar Thief Bandit, sidetrack number 2. We'll listen to it now. I promise.
I'm gonna lose it.
All right, good enough.
It's gonna be so good. It was really good. It's surprising to me that this album is not out, because it sounds like an album that came out in 1994.
And then they supported The Offspring.
Yes, I was going to say it's like a grungier version of The Offspring.
Yeah. Well, hey, welcome to the 90s revival. Yeah. If there is another theme that we could talk about that goes through a lot of episodes, it's that
so much 90s
the 90s
revival.
are back, baby.
Yeah, that's almost like representative of a particular strain of kind of like, I don't know, punk infused rock that I like when it's just, if it was just a little bit dirtier.
Yeah,
it was
a little
just,
bit messier.
Just slightly less clean than that. It would be like, I guarantee I could probably find a song or two from something like that and throw it on a biking or driving mix or something.
Yeah,
you know,
like, 100%.
Yeah, that's a really great version of a song that I would never listen to on purpose.
What does that mean?
Like when it came on in a movie, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's perfect for this scene. That makes sense, and it doesn't. I don't dislike it. It's just never been a style of music that I like gravitated to at all for like regular listening purposes.
And it's just on the edge of one that I do like, but I don't ever have any time to go find new versions of, like, unless I stumble across it. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of like a nice breath of fresh air, lifting me up out of the sludge swamp that I'm usually spend most of my time in.
That's when I listen to funk.
Upbeat pop punk.
That's when I listen to Bootsy Collins and Funkadelic and Larry Graham. So here's the band that really tried to like get evocative with their description here. 70s raw garage revival, late 90s uplifting lyrics. Like they're trying to put you in
undeniable energy
in a place. Yeah, I would. All of that appears to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of us denied it.
So here's what I'm curious. I'm always curious about with music like this is it 12 tracks of that?
Oh, of course.
Like my favorite game is like playing the role play of the punk rock songwriting session. It's all right. Okay, we got chord 1. What's chord 2? Okay, we got chord 2. Did we do chord 3 or not? All right. We'll have a third chord. We'll have a third chord.
That's a little complex.
That's a good call, though. Can you play another part of another song?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's see.
So I'm curious to see if it goes anywhere else. There's the 70s garage rock.
I know it's crazy, but it's driving me mad. We think the best is what we've never had. Wrong side of the tracks, nails against backs. My mind makes up for what my body lacks. She's like tomorrow.
Again, that shows up in a scene in a movie. I'm like, hey,
All right,
that's a good
cool.
song.
Yeah.
Or on the next Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, which is how all of this music broke when the
Right.
game first came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
they're-
like
what
I like the musical part more so maybe than the vocal part, just personally.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think it's they
And they're Swedish.
do this style
Yeah,
really well.
They're Swedish, so I mean, there's a lineage of this in Sweden too,
Yeah.
going back to bands like the Helicopters and
Yeah.
the
garage bands.
There's definitely kind of a love for for garage rock in Sweden.
Eric and the drummer and the original drummer and bass player from Dozer, who are now in Best for Yeltsin, they actually had a punk band, I don't know, 13 or 14 years ago called The Sick. And it was like that, except it was a little faster. It was a little bit like major label Green Day. So it was just a little dirtier and grimier and just kind of and just like scuzzier, but still high energy like that and very singable. It was great. It was great, but like
we learned something interesting from the Martins from Domcraft yesterday, which was because I asked, I'm always curious about singing in native language versus singing in English and like what drives that decision. And they basically said certain forms of music sound good sung in Swedish and other forms don't. So punk rock is really great. Swedish is a great language for singing punk rock. But if you sing like prog, it sounds like insanely pretentious and weird. So they tend to not sing in Swedish just because it doesn't fit the form that they're playing. It was a really interesting point. Like do regional scenes emerge, and does their success have anything to do with singing in English or not? And is that somehow determined by how good the music sounds sung in a particular language? It's such a weird thing, like such a weird esoteric detail to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But and it had never really occurred to me before that it would make a difference, but clearly it does.
I've ever thought that. I would have always thought it was more related to just like this idea that the U.S. is, regardless of sort of how the U.S. rises and falls as far as how it's regarded in the world, it's still kind of looked at as like the holy land for rock and for heavy music or whatever. I mean, as far as like where a lot of this stuff started, or some combo of the US and the UK.
The sort of conventional wisdom that our biggest export is culture, that that we don't really talk about that, and is finally diminishing, which I think is actually a good thing, because that sort of presupposes the dominance of our culture, or the value of it being better than others. That's an idea that I could happily shed. And I love listening to music in other languages, and seeing films that are made in other places, and I mean, now when Disney's making Marvel movies specifically targeted to the Chinese market, like that's over, right? It's still a big export, but it's not like assumed now that the best pop culture comes from the States.
I like it with movies. I like watching movies, like foreign language movies and shows with subtitles. I find that my wife and I do that a lot. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't work as much for me with music. It's a barrier for me not knowing what's being sung or said. Probably because I'm kind of a lyric snob, and I would probably hate myself if I really dug something and I found out the lyrics were just weak as shit, but like I didn't know because they were in Swedish or something. And like, I was like, oh man, I spent 5 months telling everybody how great this band was.
And they're singing about pizza and lighters.
Just Just the worst recycled pop punk lyrics. Like, ugh.
Yeah, sorry, John Garcia, but Andy Patterson called you out on that, and I will never forget it.
Awesome.
Oh, all right. So
we got our Bandcamp selection.
We have a Bandcamp selection.
Yeah.
All right.
Bandcamp selection.
I'll share my page again here.
You know, I think though too, it comes down to English still just being like sort of a universal language.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you're a Swedish band and you sing in Swedish, people in Sweden will understand you. But
Right.
there's not a lot of people that speak Swedish outside of Sweden.
Yeah, we were talking about the sizes of countries. You know, it's funny, like you have kids and they hit a certain age and you start to make assumptions about what they do and don't know. And then you remember, like a 13-year-old doesn't know everything. But like
they don't?
Even just basic things like the relative sizes of Sweden and the United States, to go like, yeah, no, honey, there's only 10 million people in Sweden. There's 40 million people in California.
Yeah.
like she's like, but is big? How big is it compared to? It's like, all right, you're 13. Okay, it's a weird experience. If you don't have kids, you have experiences that you never anticipated you'd have. You go through things that you never. You explain shit that.
Yeah.
I had a moment last night. This is a breakthrough moment. My daughter sent me a text, all garbled, you know, to the point where I couldn't tell what she was saying because of the punctuation and capitalization. And I was like, all right, it's time to do this. Like we're gonna have a life lesson about the importance of grammar. So all I did was text her back the meme of the difference between helping your Uncle Jack off a horse and helping your Uncle Jack off a horse. And I was like, she's ready for this. So all I did was send it to her. I didn't reply to her text at all. And then I just heard like this explosion of laughter from her.
Commas matter. Commas keep people alive.
Like, punctuation matters, hon.
Yeah.
What are you asking me for?
Yeah.
And she was like on Discord with her friends, and she like there were like 10 people laughing about it shortly after I sent it. Yeah. But it was like, I didn't think I'd ever be texting her that. Maybe child protection services.
you could have sent her the grandma, the one let's eat grandma.
Yeah, I could have, but you know, it's not my go-to for that situation.
I'm stunned.
You have kids?
Yeah,
Jadd?
yeah, I'm a 13-year-old girl.
Oh, you're in the same boat as us.
The struggle exists. Yeah. And it's actually both ends of the spectrum on the texting and the grammar, because my mom and daughter are both about there in terms of the lack of punctuation.
Oh, really?
The lack
Mom's
of capitalization. All caps. Yeah.
Is mom all caps?
It's just a block. It's just a block that ends with an emoji rather than any punctuation anywhere within. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, did I read that you did creative writing? You have a degree in like creative writing or something like that?
Yeah.
English majors unite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was perfectly preparing myself for a career in the music industry.
Oh, that's funny.
It means I still write exceedingly long emails to customers that they're going, what is the point of this?
I know. Oh my.
I agonized over that.
Yeah.
All the punctuation is perfect.
Incredible use of adjectives and punctuation.
Yeah.
Is there a promo code in here anywhere?
Oh man, I can't write an email with less than 3 paragraphs. I can't. And every email starts as a 5-paragraph essay with an inverted funnel conclusion.
Yeah.
But because I was taught by Jesuits in the 90s how to write an essay. Yeah.
Tell me, but the Post-Wax subscribers are very tolerant people, because I over communicate at length to them about what's happening and what to expect.
You picked the right guy to write the liner notes then.
Yeah.
JJ, he's my favorite writer in heavy music. And I showered him with praise when we interviewed him. Yeah. Just because I couldn't stop myself. But I mean, I think his approach is my favorite approach, which is to communicate the feeling of the music and to not like pick it apart, but to talk about how it made him feel. Is essentially kind of the experience of listening is what he writes about, which I think is really cool, and why writing the liner notes I think is such a great role for him, because that's what you want in those liner notes. You don't want like a bibliography of what of the sources or what happened. You want the story.
Yeah. When we were kind of myself and Peter from Lowrider, who's basically like my creative partner on the post-wax stuff for Blues Funeral. When we were coming up with the liner note idea, I was looking at an old Charles Mingus Blue Note release, and just the liner notes in there is what kind of gave me the idea of like I would like a story like this that is, it doesn't feel like it's following a formula. It's some combination of like it's telling you a little bit about what it might have felt like in the studio, what it felt like to kind of observe these musicians pulling this thing together. And that was really the idea we handed off to JJ when we were like, if you want to write these liner notes, it'd be really cool. We're kind of loosely basing it on or trying to have them inspired by the old Blue Note jazz record liner notes, and take that idea and take it where you want. And he has.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
We stumbled over some quote or story yesterday from Screamin' Jay Hawkins about the recording of "I Put a Spell on You," where he basically said, the producer said, "What do you guys do when you play live?" And they're like, "Oh, we party. Do you party?" And they're like, "Yeah." "Do you drink?" "Yeah." "Do you get drunk?" "Yeah." "And then how do you perform when you're drunk?" And he said, "I have no idea. We're drunk, so we don't know." And then he went out and bought a bunch of liquor and got the entire band wasted and recorded that track. And they have no recollection of recording it. And he said, "But that was when I went from Jay Hawkins, the blues singer, to Screamin' Jay Hawkins." and like just the write up of that story was so cool. It was like such an interesting little such a significant snapshot of music history that song is. And then just like what happens, what a producer might do in a recording situation to kind of stimulate the artist and get things moving. And I assume his idea wasn't to get them wasted, but to create the environment where they were comfortable performing. Right. And I watch producers do that. When we were in the studio with Billy Anderson and the vocal performance was last, he said, "All right, Troy, what makes you comfortable? Like what environment is your preferred environment to sing in?" I was like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, he didn't ask me that." Yeah. Where do you like to play bass?" And I get it, because there's a lot less vulnerability in playing bass. And he set him up with this like cool background, and there were candles everywhere, and he brought the lights down and brought in like lighting and stuff. And I was like, fuck, man, what a difference it made in like immediately in Troy's body. You could see like he was comfortable in that setting. Yeah. And then, dragged a, pretty crazy vocal performance out of him over the course of the next day and a half. And it's like, that wouldn't have happened if he hadn't done that. And the things that producers learn over time to get performances out of people, I think is a really fascinating part of the business that is so opaque to the listeners. Like, people who just consume music don't know this shit happens.
And even to artists who've never experienced it. I've recorded a few times with a few different people. I've never had anything like that. It was basically always just kind of like, here's your mic,
do your turn.
Thing.
Yeah.
And you got to get yourself, or in my experience, I had to get myself there. And, because I would love to have an experience like that. Honestly, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. And it was really cool, because we've done it other ways too. And it's like, oh shit, that matters. And it was part of my kind of reckoning with how the role of the singer is so much different than the role of everybody else in the band. How when your body being the instrument is it makes you so much more vulnerable. I think your performance is so much more personal. Like, I can poke strings all day and no one would like judge me exactly, but what you think about, and JD was sort of loading the question about, is there something that turns you on and off? In a lot of cases, it's the singing, right? When the vocals come in on a song, you switch on or off. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. Like, someone hears the bass tone and they're like, "Oh, fuck, fuck this song. I don't want to." Maybe drum. I'll admit, drum sound.
Maybe a really twangy bass sound, but it would have to be so out in front. Yeah. And I know what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it's always those vocals. You're just like, oh God, I'm really liking this song right now. Please don't have shitty vocals.
Yeah. Well, and so what that does as a band member is it makes me, when we're loading in and, like I'm carrying my giant cabinet or whatever, and Troy's just got his little briefcase with his mic, I don't give him shit anymore. which we used to all. I mean, that was just that's a running. You've been a singer in a band, you know how it is. Like the the singer sitting off in his throne while everybody else is hefting gear around and doing the heavy lifting is like, yeah, he's got to get himself in a headspace to perform that I don't really have to, honestly.
Yeah, I've always gone out of my way to like help carry gear just because of that notion about singers.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's something different. Also because like guitar players and bassists, I suppose, there's a whole lot. You craft your sound with your rig and your pedals and your choice of guitar and your choice of strings and your choice of pick, whatever. You kind of assemble that all, and it's mostly coming from you by yourself, deciding what you like, and possibly with the input of other band members, but usually on your own, right? Where a lot of the vocal stuff, especially with recordings, that's crafted kind of to a large degree in the studio. I mean, unless you're one of those singers who's coming in with a board full of effects that you actually know how to use, which I don't. You're kind of just showing up with like basically your ideas of how you're going to sing what you're singing, but even that's kind of flexible to a degree if something's not working. And then there's going to be all of the layers, the layering, the mixing, the effects that they're going to add, the things you're going to experiment with to get a particular vibe, to make something sound particularly intimate or cavernous or whatever. I mean, so much of that gets developed at that point that it just, and like you said, it's such a different role in the music because it's a make or break thing, right? When somebody's listening, wrong vocal sound, wrong delivery, see ya. Like I can't keep listening to this.
Yeah, that just gave me an interesting thought for producers, which is if you want to put everyone on the same footing in the studio, except for the drummers, because they have an unfair advantage playing usually an acoustic instrument, is make the bass player and the guitar player record their first tracks just dry into the board. Go. Now you know what it's like to be the singer, right? so maybe be nice.
Maybe give him less shit.
Yeah, be nice to singers. God.
Yeah. No, I look. I have really. Troy's the best singer I've ever been in a band with, and my respect for what he does has really grown as I see what it takes to pull, to do what he does, and to know that I personally. You could put me in a studio for a year and I wouldn't be able to produce anything comparable to what he can whip out with a little bit of practice. So it's definitely like to give the singer some praise, and that isn't just for people who are doing traditional singing, but all forms of vocals in music. I used to be very much a clean singing guy, and in my old age have grown to really embrace a lot more vocal styles in music beyond just a good clean voice.
You're making me want to mention something, even though I can't really say anything about it because it's not public knowledge yet. So I'm just going to like hint around it and be kind of irritating. But speaking of that and different styles, MagneticEye is working on a project that's coming out. If all goes well, it'll come out towards the end of this year. It's essentially a bunch of high profile figures from kind of the doom scene with a bunch of throat singers from all over the world, from like Russia and Africa, and there's somebody from Canada, and it's like each track was sort of composed by this guy who's a producer and multi-instrumentalist, and then he brought in these, like I said, these mostly guitarists from a bunch of really notable doom and stoner doom bands, and then went and invited all these different throat singers to write and contribute their own vocals to each of these tracks. It's going to be this crazy, interesting, bizarre record.
Oh yeah,
and it's cool because I'm working on getting it together, and I wasn't the one that the project kind of came to me through like the larger label connections, and then we ended up deciding it does make sense for it to come out of MagneticEye because of these scene associations. And he was, and I was hearing it as it was going along, and I'm going, I'm not sure I understand this. I'm not sure I'm qualified to kind of comment on it. And then finally this producer, he was like asking me like, what do you think of the record? I hope the fact that I haven't heard from you doesn't mean you don't like it. I'm like, no, it's not that I don't like it. It's like, it would be like asking me my feelings about like Thelonious Monk if I'd never heard jazz.
Yeah.
Like I should not be allowed to tell you what I think, at least until I understand a little more of the enveloping, like stylistic, meaning of this. And which was great because he then came back to me. He was like, well, look, I'm not like an aficionado in like throat singing. I just like the sound of it. I'm like, oh, all right. So that put me at ease to be able to be a little more just like, all right, I can just listen to this as a listener and not feel like I have to be an expert in understanding what is good throat singing. Because otherwise I'd be like, you could play me the best and the worst throat singers from around the world, and I might not know
whatever.
Why is this one the better one? I don't. But
like this one sounds really better to me. They're like, no, he's doing it all wrong.
That's a homeless guy actually we found outside just to show you that you don't know what you're talking about.
It's a trap. Oh yeah, oh god,
it's a trap.
And then your daily dose, I assume, because you're a human being, your daily dose of imposter syndrome, despite your long history in this scene, goes like, should I really be commenting on this? Am I really an expert in anything? Which is I know an experience that I go through on the reg. But I mean, shit. Anytime the Who comes through the Bay Area, the HU, the Mongolian kind of hybrid metal throat singing band, they sell out every multiple nights at every venue that they play. So I get that, and we have that same experience. One of the things that Bandcamp is doing is curating obscure regional scenes, and we've definitely listened to music from Africa and Italy where we're just like, I don't know, I don't know, man,
but I think this is good.
It sounds cool.
Exactly.
But of course, when we have a person who's who has a vast experience in promotion and marketing comes on, we have themes that emerge, and context in music is so important. Like the understanding the environment that Troy's saying in, or understanding how that music was made or why it was selected, changes your experience in listening to it, period. The live context makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
We talked yesterday with the Martins about how much more likely you are to re-listen to and change your ideas about a piece of recorded music after you go and see the band live, and what kind of an impact that makes on your listening experience, because it adds pieces of context for which to like interpret what you're listening to.
I agree. I've been turned off by bands that I liked previously only in like recorded form when I saw them live, and I've also been converted by bands that I hadn't Clutch is my best example of that. I think I wasn't really I didn't totally get Clutch until I saw them in like either 2000 or 2001. I saw them live for the first time, and I came away completely converted, and B, almost ready to like quit trying to make music. 'Cause I'm like, what is the point of still trying to sing in a band when that is out in the world? Like,
when you're a lyrics guy, man. I mean, Neil's like should be poet laureate for he's special, and he's such an, I mean, shit, man. I saw them so many times in the late 90s and early 2000s, and fuck, man, that is just the gold standard for how to front a band. I mean, he's just incredible, and it wasn't really like I liked them, but it wasn't really until Elephant Riders actually that I jumped fully on board, because that album was like, I always felt like they were writing and they went, I want to do something different with this record. Let's write a record that has no chords. Like we're gonna make a record that is entirely based on chains of riffs and with as few places where we sit on a chord as possible. And it really jumped out to me how different that record sounded than almost anything else. Since then has been copied 11 billion times by lots of different artists. But at the time, that record jumped off the page to me as being something completely different and so cool.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. We're listening.
Should we do the last two songs and then?
Yeah, who's next?
It's Wilkes.
All right, is this Bandcamp pick?
Yeah, so this is in honor of this evening. They did a list of the director Shaka King, who directed Judas and the Black Messiah. He did his picks, so his Bandcamp favorites.
Well, I'm impressed that he listens to Bandcamp.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right?
And this was one of his picks?
So this is one of his picks. Yeah, it says he makes simple, beautiful music. He's just amazing. The guy is a composer, producer, arranger, bassist.
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah. So the song is Tonight.
Yeah, you know, that's not, there's only a few people where you'll hear composer, arranger, bassist. We had a long conversation about whether bass can really be a songwriting tool or not. I bet he composes with a keyboard. All right, here we go. Tonight.
I'm into it. That's like some easy Sunday listening tunes.
Yeah, that's actually very cool. I really like the ethereal jazziness. Like,
Yeah, like I don't know that much about modern jazz, and I'm sure there's a jazz underground, but that kind of the lo-fi quality of it I really liked. And if there's kind of a lot of that going on, I'd listen to more jazz. Not going to make fun of him at all. Just as a bass player, the composition of that song so far is two notes
for the bass.
For the bass,
yeah.
But he's generously making room for all the other instrumentation.
Yeah, that's what we do.
He doesn't need to step all over everything else.
Yeah. So someone in the comments said their favorite track was "Hug." I want to hear.
Hug.
So I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna put on a little bit of "Hug." It's got an 8-minute song and a 2.5-minute song.
These are long.
Interesting. All right.
Interesting.
I'm joking. If he's being called out as a writer and arranger, he's doing more than just. I know he's doing more than just playing the simple bass lines. Huh?
Yeah, he must be.
That's some cool stuff. I mentioned Charles Mingus earlier. I mean, I'm a fan of kind of like older like hard bop era jazz. I'm countering your multiple Austin Powers references with multiple Charles Mingus references.
That's my favorite. That's the era of jazz that I know the most about too, and is my favorite as a result.
And I sometimes get exposed to more contemporary jazz, and I found some of it that I like, but I'm not like I don't actually have time to like explore it and follow it the way I think I'd like to. I'd probably find a lot more, but that's the kind of thing that I could get either sucked into that, or it would probably lead me to other stuff that I like.
Yeah. This is an interesting story. So he dropped a little bit of an interview in his Bandcamp page, and Wilkes is his last name, but it means wolf in Lithuanian. And upon immigration, his family changed the name from Wolf to Wilkes for fear of their Jewish last name inhibiting their ability to get work.
Oh, interesting.
Fuck, man.
That's crazy.
It's insane what some people have to do just to get by. Can you imagine one time in your life thinking, well, shit, I better change my last name so that someone will hire me?
Yeah. Pretty sure that still happens.
I don't like to talk like I said, about the production too much.
Yeah.
But in this case, the production, particularly on the drums, was really appealing. It was the drums were very different.
The drums are my favorite part.
Whether it sounded like it or not, that sounds to me, honestly, like a pair of overhead mics and maybe some room mics and no individual miking of the kit to get that real organic live drum sound. And it's so good. But your drummer has to be incredible because they have to be on top of volume management, which is something that we do playing electric instruments, but it's a very different thing. Like keeping the volume of your kick in line with the volume of everything else, knowing that once it's printed, you can't go back and make those toms louder.
We got one last song that I want to make sure we get to because I think it's going to be bonkers.
Oh, I like that.
All right.
It is that pipe right there, Resno. Resno by Bryan Kenney Fresno.
What? So this is a submission?
This is a submission.
All right. So first of all, what is he playing? Is he playing like a 10-string? Is he playing a Chapman stick? What in the shit is going on here?
That is a huge discography he had too. Look like what? I wish your listeners could see this cover image.
Well,
it's just,
they will on YouTube.
They're gonna have to check out YouTube.
So the Future is Fresno by Bryan Kenney Fresno is a man flying over a grape field in overalls with a tablecloth cape, no shirt. Those high tops, I remember those. Oh, they're mismatched. It's like he got two different shoes.
Yeah.
There's an R on the toe of the right shoe so that he knows to put it on his right foot.
Why does this?
All right. Okay.
12 strings, 12 hours.
So the first thing I know is that we're sending this to Ryan from Pound as soon as we finish listening to it.
Oh my God.
12-string guitar. I mean, honestly, some of this stuff, this shit looks like I don't know if you're familiar with. There's a really popular account on Facebook and Instagram called Chibson USA, which is like parodies of Gibson, like ads for gear. You know, it'll be like get the Chibson, Flying P, and it's a P-shaped guitar, and it looks exactly like a Gibson ad, because you need to pee, and it's like starting at $19,998. I think it's related to Riggs a Dad. If it's not, it's like spiritually related to Riggs a Dad. But I feel like in the Riggs a Dad post they talk about their Gibson guitars, so maybe it was probably inspired by. But he's got an ad for a show, if it's even real, at Audie's Olympic Tavern in Fresno. We'll cut this out and make a video just of this, so there's a couple minute long video.
Over 100 original songs.
100 original songs
from noon until midnight.
And he's holding his guitar like a grenade launcher.
Yeah.
It has to be on the solstice because that's the longest day of the year.
I'm almost curious to know if this is like one of those comedic. This is like a.
Let's find out.
What do they call the two guys?
Oh, you said you suspect this will be batshit crazy when the first song is called Batshit Crazy?
Is it really?
Yes. Did you know?
No, I did not know that.
Come on.
You had to have seen it.
No, I had not. I did not see that.
All right. Well, without further ado, here is the Future is Fresno, Batshit Crazy from Bryan Kenney Fresno. And I don't know how much you know about California, but I think Fresno historically has been on the list of the worst cities in the country to live in the last decade, like 7 times. And it's actually a cool story because it's really turned around. That's like a real good story, but no. Well, Fresno's where Trevor Church is from. So everything haunt comes out of Fresno, and Trevor constantly complains about how trash Fresno is and how there's no good music coming out of Fresno. All right, so let's listen.
Okay.
Left my front door open for only just a minute. Distracted for an instant, suddenly my living room, you were in it. Nervous maniacal laughter turned turning on heel, pacing back and forth. Finally, instantly recognized you as our neighbor to the north. They run some kind of halfway house for the mentally unstable. There's no cure. I've always preferred my insanity pure. Now please tell me one thing for sure. Are you crazy? Or are you batshit crazy? To come so far, let's stop short. To me just seems kind of lazy. Are you crazy? Or are you batshit crazy? Halfway through the killing spree, details get kind of hazy. Well, I've always had a crazy ray. Maybe
I don't know what's happening.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but can we hear a little of a different song also?
Yes. Yeah. No,
I'm stunned to hear myself asking for more, but I just want to, for context purposes, I need to get a little more.
I need to hear all those strings, first of all. I'm not hearing all 12, I'm not hearing all 12 strings. Okay, so here's my thing. This is someone who grew up around here when I grew up and probably went to a bunch of Mr. Bungle and Deli Creep shows, because in the beginning of Buckethead's career, in the beginning of Mr. Bungle, that's what a show sounded like. That's what it sounded like. And everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? This weird shit. And then it spawned a million bands that were as weird or weirder, kind of doing this carnival stuff. But then the lyrics are in a different world. Right? He's got,
I play Resno, because I think Resno is what he actually sent.
Okay, well, I need to hear the 5-second. There's interstitials, and I need to. I
think this is a comedy album.
Yeah.
Oh no, it sounds like we're in Clovis.
I mean, that's like the interstitials on the first Bungle record, when they hopped on a train and just recorded audio of them being hobos on a train. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole with this. Every stain has a story. Is the title of a song.
Every stain has a story.
Oh, we're gonna learn all about you, Bryan Kenney Fresno.
One big happy Resno.
Okay, Resno.
Some Resno.
Let's 10 minutes and 41 seconds long.
Man.
Resno.
That's a long song.
So that's probably
establishing location. What location is that? oh, right.
This song is called Fresno. This is about a real-life action superhero in Fresno.
Okay, here we go. The handlebars are turned up on his 10-speed bike. He's just the sort of dude all the stoner chicks like. Got no worries, no, he don't care. He's got a red bandana in his greasy long hair. Kind of a community disorganizer. A free and plentiful ill advisor. With a chamber pipe from the 70s. With absolutely unending yield. Unending yield.
How does this go for 10 minutes?
I have no idea. Wow.
So, all right, I'm gonna say two things. One of which is probably not gonna be surprising, which is that's probably not my thing.
Yeah.
But the second thing I will say is it actually makes me happy to hear and see that this exists. Like,
Yes.
because as somebody who like works in, both works with bands, also is in a band, and you get so used to kind of like the seriousness and how seriously many of us take what we're doing, and and not necessarily because the themes are so serious necessarily, but just like you're making art, and you're making art that's meant to be shared or whatever. And it's a very intense kind of thing to be involved in. And this is such a unexpected kind of unserious, fun, like upending of everything you think of when you think
exactly.
of people, how serious we all are. So, I mean, I would probably not ever listen to this, but I am stoked that he is out there creating it, and apparently very prolifically. Did I see that he
Yeah.
has 11 releases?
Well, I think most of this is all part
All
of this.
singles.
There's a bunch of singles. Oh, he goes way back.
Oh,
Holy
he does go way back. He's been doing this a while.
All right, we're going to find out who you are, Bryan.
You know what's kind of funny? You know who he looks like? Oh, whoa, is that him?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's I think that's a real Chapman stick.
Wow.
Now he's playing those big war guitars, but
Yeah. Interesting.
the sticks didn't even have a body.
Wow.
Wow.
He looks like Harvey Flanagan from Cro-Mags.
He does kind of.
He totally does. I mean, maybe not so much right there, but like,
And I'll plug it again. God
Wow.
bless Bandcamp. That's the reason why we know who Bryan Kenney Fresno is.
Oh, seriously.
And I hope
Right.
Bandcamp gives him the opportunity to make a living off of being Bryan Kenney Fresno. And,
yeah, we need more Bryan Kenney Fresnos
and
in
singing
the world.
songs about Clovis.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, and I'm not meaning this as a slam, I really would like to know the answer, which I'm sure you guys will surprise me if you know. But who is the market? Who's the audience?
It's, to me, the audience, this is like at a bar. Like he probably plays this, because I'm pretty sure this is meant to be tongue in cheek. It's like comedy metal. Yeah. It's not even metal, but
comedy.
it's just comedy rock. A la, you know, what's Jack Black's band?
Tenacious D.
Tenacious D.
Oh, right.
That's it's probably bars, you know, probably plays bars and.
Well, and you know, people who view it for what it more likely is, which is kind of like performance art.
Yeah.
And kind of who you know, come and listen and, you know, support him just because they like that he exists. I mean, that's a thing that I would very much do. If he was selling something, I would buy it just because he exists and I want him to continue existing.
Exactly.
It seems too self-aware to just be like
This is my art.
This is Kenny Fresno, and this is my art. Like the 100 songs on the longest day of the
on
year.
the longest day of the year. Yeah,
But I mean, he's gone deep. This is like Andy Kaufman level.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
getting into being your character, and especially when you go back and see a picture of him from the 90s with a serious cassette release and a Chapman stick. So I'm gonna actually, you know what? I'm gonna ask Trevor about him.
I think Trevor knows him. I think, if I remember correctly, I think the email he sent said something about Trevor being his buddy.
All right, I'm gonna ask Trevor about that.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, hey, what else do you have going on?
Yeah, what do you
before we're wrapping up and being done for the day? I know you've got Post Wax.
Yeah.
Let's see. This comes out May 3rd.
Right. So we will have just wrapped up the Kickstarter that we were doing to promote the second volume of Post Wax. People can still sign up through bluesfuneral.com. But I like the Kickstarter thing because it gives us a nice way to create a little urgency and a little buzz, and roll out a series of announcements of the bands involved. We've got releases coming from Acid King on there, Josiah, which was a great power trio from the UK in like the first decade of the 2000s. They're doing their kind of comeback record on Post Wax. Mammoth Volume's also doing their comeback record on Post Wax. Lowrider and Elephant Tree are doing a split. Again, by the time this drops, we will have announced Dead Meadow is doing a release for Post Wax, which is
Nice.
which is pretty awesome. Dope Lord also, and then the Odolith, the band basically comprised of 4/5 of Sub Rosa, is their debut album as the Odolith is coming out first as part of Post Wax.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that too. I'm gonna bug Andy and see if I can get a preview. Had you heard about, or did you know about? Because to me, this very much sounds like a Post Wax thing, and I can cut this out if you want me to. But did you know about the Sub Rosa remix project?
No.
Did you listen to Andy's episode?
No.
He sent out Sub Rosa tracks to a bunch of big time producers of all different sorts.
Okay.
And has like an entire record nearly done worth of remixes of Sub Rosa tracks by big time producers from heavy music, but also not, from electronic music and pop and stuff. So It's like, that's like one of those, weird niche projects that's like,
Yeah.
Wow.
all right.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I'd be curious to hear the story of this. So yeah, Andy talked about it a bunch in the episode. He listed, I don't remember now because I'm old and my memory's bad, but he listed a bunch of the producers that he went to. Billy was one of them. Mm-hmm. And it was like, Billy was this end of the spectrum, which was, that's what this Sub Rosa track would sound like if Billy had mixed it. Yeah. Which is great. And then the other end of the spectrum, which was people who just broke them apart and completely remade them.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. I'll have to ask him about it. Yeah. No, I listen to podcasts pretty obsessively, but I'm always like picking and choosing because I can basically only do it on like dog walks or if I have to run to the store for something or go on a bike ride. So like every week I'm kind of like it's between like my handful and I always get behind one or the other. But I listen to the Howling Giant episode and the JJ episode and the Christian episode. So Post Wax is coming. I'm hoping we're gonna have the first couple volumes of that out by mid to late summer. You guys probably know that like industry-wide vinyl production is kind of in chaos.
It is.
And so that may dictate the schedule a little bit, but we're pushing ahead as best we can and just kind of controlling the things that we can control, which is getting, setting a schedule for the bands and the artists and so forth. And then Samnuri, which is the sludge metal band from Brooklyn. I'm doing their record on Blues Funeral. That drops June 4th. And we just premiered the second song from that. This is a band that I've liked for a while. And I feel like in some ways, you ever hear a band like they almost feel like they're too good for the scene in terms of their level of either it's a combination of like the talent, the production, the song construction, and you're like, you should be on Roadrunner. Like we shouldn't even really be talking. But but it's cool that we are. But like it's ridiculous to me that you're not already on Nuclear Blast. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so they were just kind of like they had a lot of conversations going with a lot of bigger labels, but nobody was really willing to move at this kind of in the way that they wanted to or at the speed they wanted to. And I pretty much gave them an open offer that if you guys want to put out a record, I'll do it. Nice. It won't be Roadrunner, it won't be Nuclear Blast, but I'll work my ass off for it. So
we're having them on in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I was excited about that. They're great, and it is funny when you run across those bands, and it's like you have to know. We had Josh Espinoza, who's he's in a band called Worship, but he's also an artist management, and he's got, he had a band. One of his bands played the Roadburn redo last week or the week before, and he's got two bands on Prosthetic, and he introduced to me this concept of the semi-professional band. Which is like, you're not going to be a major touring act, but everything that you do produce, you produce as well as if you were going to be a major touring band. You just don't. You just know that aspect of being in the business isn't going to be part of what you do, which was something that was interesting and really resonated with me. But then when you come across a band like Somnurian, you're just like, what? Like, first of all, why are you even talking to me? Like, this is crazy. Yeah. Like, but also cool that you're talking to me. Do you have those really frank conversations? Like I've told bands, hey, Glory or Death will put this out, but I think you could land somewhere better that's going to take better care of you as an artist. It's going to provide more services to you than just simply putting out a vinyl record and getting it into people's hands. That's a real conversation you have with folks.
Yeah. I mean, I try to be really transparent, especially given that I work with or for 3 different labels.
Multiple labels.
Yeah. I mean, my roles are different, but I mean, I own Blues Funeral, so I'm charting that course entirely, but I always intended Blues Funeral to not be a label that was kind of just another label putting out just bands albums, because I didn't want to just I didn't want to compete with other labels doing that because there's so many good ones. And I also I thought it would be, how do I make this more concise? I got a little burnt out early in my music industry career, feeling like I was taking on the weight of being responsible for getting a band. Like I heard how good they were, and now it's my job to make the world know how good they are. And it kind of takes a bit of an emotional, psychological toll if it doesn't happen. Like, why doesn't anybody else get it? Why don't enough people get it? Why don't 50,000 people buy this band's records every time they come out? And it wore me down a little bit, so that when I kind of came back to the industry and considered starting my own label again, I thought I would like to just do one-offs from bands that I think are cool, whether they're bands that have been around for 25 years, like Acid King, who are just awesome, or bands that nobody's heard of, like Dogma from San Francisco, that I just think are awesome, and I want to expose people to them, but I don't want to take on the responsibility of like, I'm now in charge of
your career,
presenting you to the world and making, you know, fans of this music aware of you and appreciate you. So I don't compete as much, I guess is the point of my saying all that. Like with the Blues Funeral, like when I don't compete with MagneticEye, which I essentially run for the company that owns it. I mean, I'm picking the bands, I'm kind of planning the releases and so forth. And then Ripple, I'm pretty separate from the A&R. The A&R is pretty much all Todd. I mean, every once in a while I hear something and I send something his way. Yeah. But when I talk to bands, I tell them, I you know, this is what Blues Funeral is, this is what MagneticEye is, this is what Ripple is. And depending on kind of which of these sounds like more what you're looking for, the discussion, I can either put you in touch with Todd, or we can keep talking about one of these two things. And here's what each of these is maybe in my mind going to offer you. And I'm very honest, and I don't push anybody in any direction or another. Because ultimately I get the satisfaction of I helped them get a record out, and I help people hear the music one way or the other.
I think Post-Wax is a really fun idea, in particular because it's a recognition that this is really like a collector's market. I forget who from Howling Giant said it, but brought up kind of that adage that like a band doesn't need 1 million fans, they need 1,000 true fans. Right. And Post-Wax is sort of the turning that concept into a product that you give something truly unique to people who are really, really into either your curation or the bands that you've selected. And it is pretty unique, and it's cool because you also get yourself out of the idea of having to do the other parts of the label business, which are, you know, useful and important, but not you just need a bigger operation if you're going to do real artist management, tour booking, promote, you know, all of that shit is just like, ugh. And so many more bands are capable of doing that on their own, or not looking for that from a label necessarily, because the market is kind of fragmented into independent tour bookers and, you know, in record labels that are just doing good vinyl releases. And so there's a bunch of different, as a band, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go.
Well, Howling Giant's a great example of that, right? Like that's in a way, I mean, I wanted to put out their record because I was a fan, but also because they're so self-sufficient that it made sense for Blues Funeral to do that record. Like it wasn't going to hinder them that Blues Funeral is a one-man operation, or just, you know, two-man operation, because they can do so much on their own. They're so capable and so just wise about how they choose what they're going to do next and where they're going to direct their efforts. So So that's all stuff I have coming on Blues Funeral.
Nice.
And then MagneticEye, I mean, you just talked to the Martins, so the new Domcraft record it is out, and
it's so good too.
It really is. I mean, I thought it was a titanic leap forward. I mean, it's a little bit of a slow burner, and I maybe take a tiny bit of responsibility for that, because I gave them my 2 cents on how to like some track arrangement when they were deciding on how to start the album. And I like the first track kind of like eases in. It's not just like a slam and you're into it. It kind of like creeps a little bit. And I feel like it serves the album well. It does not serve the 20-second attention span listeners very well. But hopefully they'll push through.
We'll bug you then. So we were talking a little bit about hating to have our pictures taken, band photographs, and they're talking about the streaming performance they're going to do, and I gave them a really fantastic idea for how to do the stream, and the pushback was, well, maybe they thought the idea was stupid, and the pushback wasn't related, but it was sort of like, we don't have money nor the technical skills to do much of anything.
What's the idea?
Yeah. Oh, I said, so we have a nice $15 green screen behind us here. And if you want something really cool, like green screen, those green bodysuits, play the songs and have a projection of the album art or some sort of animated version of that 3D album art over them. So it's like two floating guitars, a pair of floating drumsticks, and then that completely wackadoo 3D.
I don't know if it suits their aesthetic though.
Well, no, it does, because you don't see them in the green.
Right, because then you basically see that cool artwork that
they disappear into the art.
Yeah.
And you see the instruments.
Yeah, true.
I don't know, or it
True.
could look really goofy. We got to trial it. JD bought a couple of green long sleeve shirts.
You know it.
Just for fun, one day we're gonna wear it when we record an episode, so that we're just like floating heads and a pair of hands. But it's gotta be. Yeah. We'll pick the right guest.
Yeah.
Who that's
maybe Mr. Fresno would be appreciative of that particular aesthetic.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Who's on board for that kind of nonsense?
Let's get you another couple questions real quick.
Sure.
I want to ask before we let you go about your day. So one thing, we have a lot of bands that listen, a lot of people, and I know like Todd posted this video on Facebook the other day about, hey, bands, when you send me your stuff that you want me to hear, here's how to do it. So like, what is just a word of advice from you, having worked in so many labels and picking bands for labels, like what gets your attention? What is one thing that a band should do when they reach out?
So I like again, because of the little bit of the writing snobbery, I like a professional sounding. When I say professional, I just mean articulate, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you can put together a couple sentences that talks about who you are and why who you're sending this to should care, that would be great. If you tell me, if the bio is, we're a stoner rock band from Hungary with 4 names that I may or may not be able to pronounce and listening to different instruments, you may already be starting to lose me, because you're telling me things that maybe don't mean anything to me, when you could just be like, I'm not going to give you like a rundown of what someone should say, but I got a submission the other day from a band who has had records on Relapse and I think Neurot, which mentioning that right up front, like we previously had, we deactivated for about 10 years. We did have records here, but we were kind of preparing a new record. They kind of launched in, and they gave me kind of a sense of who they are, what they're doing. And it was fairly concise and it was well communicated. And then a link that I can listen to, a streaming link like a private SoundCloud is to me, I will always click on those. And I will almost never download anything. If you send me a WeTransfer there, I will probably not download it. Yeah. And part of that is time. Part of that is because I have 118 tabs open in my web browser. Yep. And part of that is I like space on my computer and the pain in the assness. Like if you think about, like you said, when you have marketers on the show, there's a certain, we just understand things in a certain way. You want to reduce friction at all angles of life, right? When you're trying to present somebody with something you might like them to buy, you might like them to listen to, you might like them to do. How do you take away steps for them to do that? If they have to click 3 times to buy your thing, you've eliminated a bunch of people who might have bought your thing, right? So if you make me download, then open up my iTunes, then import the songs into iTunes, and then organize them, especially if you didn't put them in the right track order, the chances that I am going to hear your stuff at all, to even have a thought for you about it, are so damn slim. Yeah. Send me a private SoundCloud link that I can click play, and there's a good chance I'll listen. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily do anything.
One click.
Hey bands, you can also do that on Bandcamp. Just FYI, there is a way to create a private PR stream of an album that you've uploaded to Bandcamp but not released yet. So make sure you know how to use it, because it fucking matters. It matters for this show. How many times have we played an MP3 that somebody sent us?
Like once.
Well,
and it was a pain in the ass, so I never did it again.
Well, no,
because it was just like Jadd said, you got to download it, upload it to iTunes, pull it up in iTunes,
or just play it on your phone. Fucked by Bigfoot was definitely an MP3 though that somebody sent us, and there was no way. There was no way we were not going to play that song, and it delivered 100%.
Exactly.
But
I mean, I know that sounds snobby, but again, I'm just like, if you're the band, if you're making the greatest music in the world, don't you want to give yourself the best chance to get whatever it is you want from it, whether it's people to listen to it, whether it's a label to pay attention to it? Give yourself the best chance. Don't make it hard.
Yeah.
And it's not like these platforms are secret, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned Bandcamp 65 times in this episode. This stuff is
I know, right?
I have. I only have 5 more.
You'd really think we were sponsored.
I only have.
And now a few
But
more
then
words on
again,
Bandcamp.
I mean, judging by the number of bands that we've had on that have worked with you, people probably think we're sponsored by MagneticEye or Blue Funeral.
Yeah. And now a few more words about MagneticEye Records. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if I got a little long-winded on the answer to that question, but it's stuff. It's funny. I watch Todd's videos too sometimes, and I've even reposted them once or twice when I was like, yes, thank you for saying that like that. I'm just going to steal this because I've wanted to say it and I hadn't gotten around to it, but yeah.
Yeah. So last question, wrapping things up.
Yes.
I don't know where is your hometown?
I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Is that where you're from?
Basically, I was born in Long Island, New York, but I grew up here, and I've left a few times and keep ending up back here.
Gotcha. So what is do you have an all-time favorite hometown band?
All time?
Yeah. I mean, it could be, they don't need to be active.
I'm gonna give 2 answers to that because I have a favorite current band and I have a all-time favorite. So my all-time favorite band from here, like the Shins were from here, like they're one of the big success stories. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, they started here, I think moved to either Oregon or Seattle and then blew up.
Oh, interesting.
I just assumed they were from Brooklyn.
The Shins?
Yeah.
Oh really?
They just look like they'd be from Brooklyn. I didn't put an ounce of effort into thinking about where they were from. I just assumed.
There was a band called the October People that were active here in the early 2000s. They were kind of they were like a little bit of a softer version of post metal. They're really, it's really hard to categorize.
Like Red Sparrows, Not Pelican.
If Godspeed You Black Emperor wrote simpler, poppier songs.
Okay.
These guys were is very atmospheric and very quiet and delicate, but then they would get very loud in like almost like a shoegazy post metal kind of guitar sound. Loved that band. And it was funny. My old band used to practice in a rehearsal space behind them, which we didn't know at the time. We practiced in like these big, metal storage units, like uninsulated metal storage units.
That probably sounded great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing was, because for the money, we had this giant one, so it was huge. So the echo wasn't too bad because we were right in the center of it. But like, it was blistering hot in the summer because we're in the desert, and then it was freezing in the winter. And I remember one night we stopped playing and I was hearing music through the wall. Like, what am I hearing? And it was like all metal walls except one concrete wall. And the concrete wall I could hear something coming through. And I walked out of the building all the way around and found out that the next set of storage units over were all musician practice spaces. And they were all like, carpeted walls and soundproofed and nice and warm. And I'm like, and it was the October People playing directly on the other side of the wall. And they were already one of my favorite local band. And I like kind of peek my head in, and their room just looked so inviting. It was like this like soft light and warm, and we were freezing our balls off in our fucking metal container. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the epitome of them and us. But then I would say my favorite current band in Albuquerque is Red Mesa.
Yeah, Red Mesa's great.
You know them? Okay,
yeah.
So good friend of mine, Brad Fry, he runs Desert Records, and he's also the singer guitarist in Red Mesa.
And isn't Roman the Monolith on the Mesa guy?
Roman, one of the 2 guys behind Monolith on the Mesa, is the drummer. And
I think we played with them as much as you can at one of those big ass festivals at South by.
Yeah,
at the Spider House.
Yeah, they did go do one of those that Howling Giant was on as well.
Yeah, Howling Giant was there that day too. That was a fun day. Broom was there. Yeah, it was cool to be in Texas and be like, oh look, all my friends are here.
Yeah, no, Red Mesa are great guys. We Brad and I got to know each other a few years ago. It was funny when he first hit me up. It's like I gave him props for like he like did some digging and figured out that I was in Albuquerque and started hitting me up online. And initially I wasn't really responding because I'm like, all right, this is, you know, some band who happens to be in the same town and figured out that I'm here. And now he's trying to pitch me on his record. Really, he just kind of wanted to talk shop. He's like, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Like with the band, I was thinking of self-releasing it and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I totally misjudged what this was going to be. Like this was going to be like a hard sell. Please release my band. It was just more like, I just want to, you're here and I'm here. We never get to talk to actual humans in person. Everything's over email. So like maybe we could just have a beer, and we did. And we ended up being friends. We've done some co-releases with Desert Records and Blues Funeral. And yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Good band.
Yeah, they're good. Was Santos from Albuquerque too?
No, he was Santa Fe.
He was Santa Fe. I was going to say, so you weren't could we call Old Man Gloom a New Mexico band? So. He told us about their first shows, which sounded hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Yeah. Albuquerque's one city we missed the last time we toured through the Southwest, because it was a Sunday night and there just was nothing going on anywhere. Or maybe it was a Monday night. It was just like, that's a day off. Let's take a day.
Albuquerque is always in this weird spot. I mean, we're the biggest city in the state, and yet still often we're not a big enough city that some tours just breeze right past us and go from Arizona to Texas.
Yep.
But it'll change. There'll be like waves of like activity where all of a sudden everybody, like I would say like in 2004, 2005, every band was stopping through here. And my old band, we played a bunch of shows in this tiny little dingy club called Bert's Tiki Lounge. We played with Bitchwax. We played with Yob. We played with Dixie Witch. I mean, it was just like this stream of bands and people, and it was always off nights. It was always Monday, Tuesday nights, but it was like Tuesday at Bert's. It was like, you could see these fucking incredible bands.
Yeah.
And if you were us, you could get the opening slot because there was no other like heavy, you know, kind of stoner desert rock bands in the city. So it was like, we always got the spot.
We had a Bert's in Salt Lake, actually.
Sometimes
Tiki Lounge.
Sometimes it just comes down to one person. You know, I mean, and somebody like Roman taking on that Monolith in the Mesa, then you like make yourself a spot, or up in Sacramento. You know, there's one booker who's responsible for turning Sacramento into like a premier spot where you would save a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night on a tour stop to actually play Sacramento and sometimes even instead of the Bay Area, just because the fans are hungrier and there's less access. So it's like more of an event when somebody comes through there.
Yeah, Monolith is great. Monolith was a real experience. I mean, seeing a fest like that in New Mexico and having some of the bands that they were able to get. I mean, when they got like Woven Hand, which was like, oh my God, I've been a fan of David Eugene Edwards and 16 Horsepower since I was in college, like since like 1995. I mean, some of the stuff that they were able to get out here, and that's where I discovered Lord Buffalo. I was so blown away that I like had to put out their record.
Yeah, I was very jealous of all the people that I knew that were playing, because that setting just looked so incredible. The Year of the Cobra played that. Amy and John played that. Did they? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah, Wino played it.
Yeah,
Wino did an acoustic set and an Obsessed set. It was, Dead Meadow played it. That's what really sold me on Dead Meadow. Where like I think I started working on trying to get Dead Meadow for Post-Wax not too long after I saw them play Monolith, because I was so floored and so blown away by like the light show and the ambiance of their sound, and as basically that's kind of the story of Post-Wax. I find a band and I spend 2.5 years chasing them and trying to wear them down into doing a record for Post-Wax.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, Buddy from Grey Electric Quest and Glory or Death turned me on to Dead Meadow. He's really close to one of the members. I forget who, and yeah, he's used them for production work in some cases, and they're killer. But it was not someone who was on my radar at all.
Yeah,
you know.
I've been aware of them forever, but like didn't really like take the dive because it always felt like just a little outside. I don't even, those bands where you have no excuse, like you're aware of them and you probably should know them and you just haven't checked them out yet and you can't justify why. Yeah. They were one of those.
They were one of those
for a while.
I know those bands.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
We're gonna do an all when we had John Carbone from Moontooth on. Which do you listen to much kind of more modern metal, or do you mostly listen to kind of stonery, doomy?
Define modern metal.
They
super aggressive stuff, like
Not necessarily, more like, clean tones, not necessarily vintage amps, real crisp production.
Singers that sing.
Singers, the real stuff that you would hear on like modern metal radio stations. That sort of.
I have a weak spot for Killswitch Engage, and like Every Time I Die. I don't know if that's kind of not really what you're talking about.
If you haven't, they're in the universe. But if you haven't checked out this band from Long Island called Moontooth, they fucking blew us away. Mm-hmm. As a band that's been around for years and just wasn't really on my radar. And then we listened to them and we were like, this is the greatest thing that I've never heard before.
Yeah,
awesome.
in my life. And then we had John on the show. He's the singer. And he has this like insane, like crazy, soulful, bluesy voice laid on top of this metal that sounds very different from the way his voice sounds. And he said, we should do a different version of the show where we bring people on and instead of listening to things we haven't heard before, we each come with a track or two that we want to make you like. Right. And everyone gets a chance, like pass the aux chord essentially. And each person, so we have, maybe 4 guests. And everybody gets a chance to go, here's the song I'm going to make you sit through the whole goddamn thing. And then we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it
when it's done. So one of these days we'll do that too, because that scratches a different itch, which is exactly that, accessing those bands that are well known, or known at least, that I just haven't taken the time to dive into. Yeah,
because you can't listen to everything, or we never get anything else done in our lives.
Exactly. Then I'd have to stop listening to podcasts, which consumes a lot of my listening time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Jadd, this has been great.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm so glad we could finally get you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I've gotten a lot of kind of leads on stuff I want to be listening to that I hadn't known about before this. So if I could do one of these like maybe every month, that would be perfect for my own exposure to new stuff I need to be hearing. This is a great way to.
Yeah,
it could just be a segment. We'll just do 30 minutes with Jadd.
30 minutes with Jadd.
Perfect. That's plenty of time for you guys to give me like 3 things to hear that month.
Yeah. Well, Susie's now our first repeat guest, and I feel like we need to have Susie about every 6 months, just because I need to get actually once things open back up again and we can see each other, we'll just do it in person, which is what we're used to. But this was an excuse to not drive 50 minutes and hang out with her. But that's going to change soon. I'm about a week and a half away from being a fully cleared, vaccinated person who can have expanded access to the world, which is pretty goddamn exciting.
Congratulations! I got the Johnson & Johnson shot about 4 days before they announced the blood clot issue and pulled it from the market. But my wife got it about 2 weeks before, and she's in the demo. She's in the demographic group that they're worried about, and gets headaches frequently. And we were on our first trip when they pulled it, so it was like, oh shit, we're like in a different state for the first time in a year, and hopefully nothing happens. She seems to be fine. I mean, it's 15 people. They gave 7 million. They gave 7 million shots, and it's 15 people.
15 people caught.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, thanks again for having me on. I appreciate the chance to talk about all the stuff I've got coming and labels I work for coming, and listen to some interesting music. And check out the new Dogcraft record, and check out the new Sonori record, and check out Post Wax if you're into this idea of a kind of curated subscription style series.
Yeah, your episode description will be link heavy. Let's just put it that way, because you're not just representing a single band, but kind of 3 labels. And have you? So here, last question, just out of personal interest. Since you're involved with Ripple, have you been involved with this Blasco situation at all, or is that all Todd and Blasco?
Well,
do you know him?
Well, yes, because MagneticEye put out the Zach Sabbath record.
Oh, that's right.
I had actually been working with him on that, and then but Todd developed that relationship independently of I didn't really know about it. He kind of told me about it when it was coming together. He was like, hey, so I've been talking to Blasco. We're going to do this. I'm like, oh, cool. All right. So sounds great, because we needed to up the volume of the Ripple release schedule on the production side.
More releases. That's definitely what Todd needs.
But
curated is interesting, curated by somebody. That's like the loss of radio and the rise of algorithmic playlists has kind of muted the role of the curators, and so now they're finding ways to come back. People like you, or people like Blasco, or JJ, or whoever, find ways around kind of the limitations and changes in the industry.
And Blasco
bring
has
curation
some
back.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some gravitas, right, to be able to just. So, in some ways, I feel when I'm looking at what he's doing with like the Volume Forever podcast and getting involved with Ripple, it almost seems like he's intentionally wanting to take a couple of steps down into the underground, because he's already at such a high level in the mainstream metal world, but he wants to be more in the underground, and he wants to be in kind of mixing it up in there and going, here's what I like, here's what I hear, here's what people should know about, which I find kind of interesting. I've always been in the underground, so for me, I'm like, it's interesting to see somebody taking that, because everybody in the underground is trying to
wants to go
get
up.
higher.
Yeah, I noticed that. And even before the launch of some of that stuff, like I think just on his Instagram, it'd be like, hey, here's a really cool record I think you should check out. And I was like, okay, this guy's in it. Like he's paying attention, which is curious to me. He's actually a dream guest, and I've tried a few different ways to reach out. So feel free to drop in a word. Feel free to drop in a word if you would think that's appropriate, because I think this is I think this is something that he would like and be interested in if he just knew that it existed. And I'd be fascinated to hear his voice, and I swear to God I won't pump him with questions about Ozzy. Because honestly, of all the things he's involved in, current day Ozzy is the one I'm probably least interested in, like truthfully. So I don't know, and I don't even know if he worries about that kind of stuff. But I think it'd just be fascinating to talk to, because I really did just notice independently that he's on board with the underground, and I thought that was cool as shit, because he doesn't have to. Like,
and you can't fault his taste. I mean, he's picked out. I mean, he loved the Lowrider record, so you know.
I'm also curious about some of the artist management work that he does, because that's a little bit on the down low. I don't think a lot of people really understand that he does that. And since we have so many listeners I know who are musicians, I always like to hear people that have that kind of real perspective that can help these artists that we're listening to out of the blue, like Mr. Fresno, really blow up.
Right. Well, you mentioned the curation thing. I mean, that was the entire impetus for Post Wax in the first place, was just the idea, like, if I could get something like this delivered to me, I would buy it. If I could just give money to somebody that I trust, and they send me 9 records that are essentially in sort of a style and a vein that I would probably like, even if I don't know the bands, and I just pay once and I sit back and wait, and they show up and they look great and they sound great and the art is amazing and the liner notes are interesting, I would pay for that in a second. And it didn't exist. And when you get into, I mean, you know this, when you run a record label, you're putting a lot of stock in your own ears and your own taste. You're essentially saying, I'm willing to spend money because I think I'm right about how good this band is, or this record is. And so this is kind of that logical extension of that. Like, I'm going to pretty much go out and use my ears and my sensibility and what I think is good, and what I think folks who dig this style are going to want to hear. And I'm going to present it to them as a series that they can, like a curated series that they can just jump onto and take that ride.
Well, and it's great because vinyl has exploded, but I don't know how much of that is retail. And the point of that being, I know at the 2 record stores that I frequent, in the staff picks section, I know which staff members' staff picks I'm probably gonna grab. I have various times in my life been a comics collector, and I know who in the shop I would trust to say, hey, pull the comics that you think I'll like, and then I'll just grab those. But on the internet, it's like maybe you find labels that you like, and that's curation, but it's not. But you know, even a label like Ripple puts out so much music that I'm not going to buy every Ripple release.
But there are people that will.
There are people that will. But just this, you know, all the same functions need to exist in this new world. They just take new forms. And this is a cool form of the guy at the record store whose taste I like telling me, here's the records that I'm going to deliver to you.
Totally. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Awesome.
Nice.
Killer.
Cool.
Well, thanks a lot, Jadd. It was really good talking to you again. Looking forward to seeing you and anyone else in person someday.
Seeing anyone.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe it'll be at Psycho this year. I guess we'll see.
Psycho's a fascinating possibility. We've talked about it a little bit. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
Maybe the weekend, maybe not at all.
We'll see.
For work, one of the biggest shows in cybersecurity that the company that I work for actually runs is 2 weeks before Psycho at the same location.
Oh, got it.
And so I might also have to go to that already too. So we'll
get a sneak peek.
It would be nothing, and then 2 trips to Vegas within 3 weeks.
I can think of worse things to have to deal with after a year and a half of not leaving your house.
Psycho, yes. The work show, not so much. I have in my life, mostly for work reasons, I have been to Vegas at least 150 times.
Holy hell.
And so a trip to Vegas to me almost always is like, oh God, make it as short as possible. Like, can I fly in and fly out the same day, or can I spend a single night? But Psycho is completely different. And I actually really love just sinking into the hotel and then just soaking in the whole event. So just timing wise, it's not good for us this year related to kid stuff. But when Monolith reschedules finally and has something that can reliably be expected to happen, maybe that's the one. Yeah, that too.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you for
you guys
really
too. Thanks again for having me.
And this will be out
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
All right.
Actually,
can't wait.
Listening, it'll be out today.
It's out right now. You just heard it for 2.5 hours.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks,
Enjoy
guys.
the time dilation.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Jadd.
Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.
All right.
That's a good guy who knows everything, and he's an example.
Everything.
He doesn't know everything. I gotta finish a sentence. No. In this,
I gotta get in a sentence.
That's true. This is true. In our world, he knows a lot, and but he's a good example of kind of the new world of what a record label looks like.
Yeah,
because it's not the same anymore.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I mean, do you think in in the 80s, the labels that were putting out the big metal albums were putting them out because I found this band that I really love and I want you to love it too?
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, that's all changed. Yeah. And that is labels now.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, probably not all of them.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the bigger labels are still, what can we sell? Who can we make the most money off of?
Yeah, in metal, what do you think the cutoff is? Like if you kind of go up the ladder of, relevance, sales, revenue, from the bottom to the very top is probably what, Relapse?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard,
yeah,
right?
I don't even know if they're public or
because I think there's the definitely the metal labels, but even at that point, I think there's the labels, like the big labels that are above the metal labels that are putting out metal bands, but they're not metal labels.
Yeah, and then you have like the E1s, who are these integrated digital entertainment companies that I think, I was going to ask him about this, that I think are interesting because they're not just like, you record music, we press a record, we promote you, you go on tour, or you sell records. They're like, this is cool music. It'd fit really cool in this series that we know about that's going on Cartoon Network. Yeah. Like, and Amazon Prime is making this movie Sound of Metal. Like, we should find a way to get one of our artists in there or somebody to act in the movie. Like, they have a much more broad view of what a musician's career could be, and they're the reason, we've said this, the reason why High on Fire won a Grammy was because of I think they made a great record, and then E1 was behind it.
They had the right management. Exactly. Good
job. JD did picks 2 episodes in a row. Whew. Good job blindly picking. Good Bandcamp picks. Sometimes the Bandcamp picks are a stinker, and it's like we listen and
sometimes they're incredible.
All right. So
like
that's what modern Italian prog sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Woo. Not the greatest. Sweet.
What do we have coming up?
What do we have coming up?
I don't know.
We've got Aaron Gray.
Oh, yes.
Who I think is actually going to be next Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So Aaron will be next Monday. So this will be fun. A real bona fide tour booker.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to hear about that life, he's also just a hilarious dude.
Yeah.
And he's a new dad. He's got a baby in the house. So we get to see someone
crying.
Hopefully. Yeah, maybe. And hopefully our first guest, who's the bags under his eyes are darker than mine.
Yeah. For real.
I don't know if we'll get there, but maybe we will.
Yeah, we got him. And then we have Mark from Doors to Nowhere coming up. We've got Jem from Dead. Yeah, we've got some good ones.
Got a long list of people. Actually, I have a bunch of emails to send out.
Oh yeah, Pete, right?
A bunch of booking emails. Pete Holland from Elephant Tree.
That's right.
Who has, as of this time of this recording, has agreed to re-record voiceover for our intro and outro. So get ready for some.
Ready for an updated intro and outro.
Yeah, and also some silky aristocratic English accent stuff.
Our production has come a long way. Our intro and outro has not.
No. Hey, but is it one of those things where it's like it's real shitty, but we like it. We're familiar with it. We're comfortable with it. So don't change it.
I don't know. Every time I hear it, I'm like, no, this needs to go.
Well, it will soon be fixed. We will debut a new intro and outro.
Yes.
When we do, because we don't have a schedule because no one's paying us.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even Bandcamp.
Nope. Believe it or not.
No. You know when we'll get paid though?
What?
Is when we finally get somebody from Korn to guest on.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think we will too.
So who's it going to be though? The Christian guitar guy? I think he's my number one.
I don't know.
Like born again guitarist or Fieldy.
Monkey? Is that his name, Monkey?
I know Fieldy and I know Jonathan Davis.
Yeah.
Didn't they used to have a drummer named David Silvera?
Sounds right. I think that might have been their first drummer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe I know more about Korn than I first thought. And didn't they have the video where all the bullets go through the?
It was like a Matrix style video.
Comes through as each new bullet.
I think. Okay. I don't know. I don't really remember many of their videos.
Yeah,
I really only listened to that first album.
So what years are we talking about there?
Oh, 94, 95.
So that was earlier than I was thinking. I feel like I checked out of new metal because I was like a new dad, but it was really before that.
No, yeah, it was before that.
I checked out of it because I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, I do. I think it was 94 or 95 when that first one came out. That's when I picked it up from my rep friend, my Sony rep friend. Yeah. Had stacks of them.
Makes sense.
Here, take this home.
I think I was a little personally offended too because it was like a fusion of rap and metal. Yeah. And it was a fusion that was really popular in the Bay Area, but none of the bands that we liked that did it got famous. It was like a different flavor of it that got famous. And I was probably like a jealous butthurt. It wasn't my band. I was not in a band like that, but I probably stand for some bands that didn't get as famous as I thought they should have, and then bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit. I mean, Limp Bizkit was really just it for me. Like if you're adjacent to that, I don't want anything to do with it. Although, did you see his crazy movie with John Travolta?
No,
that he made.
Mm-mm. Oh, I've heard it was nuts though.
It's crazy.
What's it called?
I forget, but it's John Travolta plays like an autistic guy who's a huge fan of somebody and then ends up like killing them, or I don't know how this got greenlit. I can't imagine why John Travolta did it.
Agreed to do it. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I can say for people who are into Scientology is that at least the church seems to kind of protect the public facing, the actors.
Yeah.
Protect their careers, like protect them from doing really shitty, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And I would think if he was still deep in it, the church would have been like, "Nah, man,
this one not so much." Don't do it. Don't do it.
Remember, John, we have 60 hours of you admitting to all the bad things you've ever done. So please don't do that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Woo!
You have been audited. All right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what they call it.
That's what they call it. Yeah. When you confess all your
confessions,
your terrible.
Yeah.
And probably, I mean, from what I've heard, it's so like intense that I think they get people to invent things.
Oh, really?
That they didn't do, and then get them. That happened in that NXIVM documentary too, didn't it? Weren't some of the like you had to give NXIVM something that they could hold against you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Didn't somebody just make some of it up? Even
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I don't remember,
but then it doesn't matter because they've got it and they can release it.
Yeah,
If your church ever tells you, I mean, hey Catholics, tell me the bad things you've done, and I'll help you. But
confess your sins.
Yeah, maybe don't.
Yeah, no, keep those inside.
Yeah. Those are for you. Those are for your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
All right.
Well, this has been
another edition
of
Blynd Submyshynz. Thanks for joining us for another week of Blynd Submyshynz. See episode description for links to all artists discussed in this episode, and visit their sites to support them directly by buying music and merch. Share links to the podcast or YouTube videos with your friends, especially if they're in bands. Bands, if you want us to listen to your music on a future episode, please submit one song to blyndsub@gmail.com. That is blyndsub, BLYNDSUB @gmail.com. Bandcamp links preferred, but not required. Find us on social media at Blynd Submyshynz. Full video episodes are available on our YouTube. Remember, we go in blind, so you don't have to. Blynd Submyshynz.